Alrighty, so today we're going to do essentially a backtesting exercise on euro dollar for the month of September 2021, and we're not going to go any lower than the M15. Okay, so essentially kind of the main goal, or there's a couple of main goals for this exercise and this lesson. One is obviously just to kind of, practice of how we put all of the concepts together to combine it into, what essentially makes up the strategy as a whole. So we're going to do this full chart walkthrough for the month of September and just really see, how we apply the concepts to the chart. But the other kind of main thing I want for you guys to hopefully get from this is that literally just trading one pair alone, so just euro dollar, going no lower than the M15, and just in 1 month, hopefully I'm going to be able to show you kind of the insane amount of opportunity and potential that there is, even just within those parameters. So yeah, we're just going to hop on and play through this. So some of you may be familiar with the software already, some of you won't. Essentially, it's just a software that allows you to backtest with bar replay on MT4. I'll link it below in the description below, but I believe I did talk about this in the testing module as well. But yeah, so only downside to this really compared to TradingView is that we can't, do some nice clear analysis in terms of drawing nice lines and boxes and all the templates and stuff. Analyzing on MT4 is extremely clunky. It's horrible. So I'm going to do my best to kind of go through this nice and slowly, a lot slower than what I would if I was just backtesting for myself, just so you guys can obviously try and follow along as clearly as possible. And you don't get too lost, because I'm not going to be able to kind of perfectly draw on every bit of structure like we would on TradingView. So sometimes it can get a little bit messy, but I'm going to do my best to kind of go through it nice and slowly. So yeah, like I said, we're going to do September, the whole month of September. So this might be a bit of a long video, but hopefully you guys will take a fair amount of value from it. I'll probably go quite slow at the start, and then if it starts to drag on a bit, I'll probably speed things up just for the sake of time. But yeah, hopefully you guys can take some value from that. Last thing I'll say is kind of, I get a lot of questions about, people saying they want to trade the higher time frames, whether that be because they have a job or they just prefer the kind of more slower and hands-off approach, etc., etc. And they ask me, how should they trade it? What should their trade plan be? Well, the simple answer, but also the correct answer, is it's exactly the same. The concepts are universal. They literally apply to any time frame you want. You could trade the 3-day, the 2.5 hour, and the 33-minute if you wanted to. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but in theory, it's all the same, right? Price has no time, time has no price. It's just orders going through the market, right? And we're just making sense of that order flow by using Japanese candlestick charts. Right, so we bring a method to the madness by kind of picking those 3 time frames: our higher time frame, our medium time frame, and our lower time frame, right? Which for me is generally the 4-hour, the M15, and the M1. But in this case, we're replacing the 4-hour, the M15, and the M1 with the daily, the 4-hour, and the M15. Okay, so the daily becomes your higher time frame, the 4-hour becomes your medium time frame, right? So we're using the daily and the 4-hour for our POIs and for our structure, and then we're pretty much just using the M15 for lower time frame execution, right? So we're not paying a massive attention to structure in that time frame, but more so kind of how we can trade from each 4-hour POI to the next 4-hour POI. Now what you'll see is I'm going to be reasonably aggressive here, and you'll see that you don't only have to enter positions when price is in your higher time frame POI. So when price is in a 4-hour POI or above, right, you don't have to stick to those. Now if you choose to only trade there, your strike rate will most likely be higher, right? If you want that higher strike rate, and you'll have to sit in your hands a little bit more, and you can still make an incredible return. But I am going to be a little bit more aggressive just to show you kind of when I will and when I wouldn't sort of chase. I don't want to say chase, but trade the M15, so our lower time frame execution time frame. When I will trade that kind of further in the leg, when it isn't in a 4-hour POI, but we're essentially just trading towards the next 4-hour POI. Okay, so yeah, I kind of wanted to make that clear that the trade plan is literally the exact same. You just have different time frames, right? So this is the M15. This is my lower time frame execution time frame. This is the 4-hour. So this is my medium time frame. My medium time frame. I'm going to be looking for POIs and kind of mapping my structure. And then we have our daily, which is again is the higher time frame where we'll be looking for structure and POIs too. Okay. Now the only other thing I'll add that kind of is a big difference between sort of trading this way, going no lower than the M15. Compared to kind of, if you trade sort of my way with M1 entries, is that session timing is nowhere near as important. So if you execute on a time frame sort of below the M15, I would say, sort of more like the M10 or the M5, then session timing does start to become a lot more important, i.e. trading during London and New York when volume is high. But with the M15, you can get away with it a little bit more with executing during the Asian session. But we'll get into that as we go. I kind of want to just jump into it now before I ramble on any longer, because yeah, this will take a fair amount of time probably to get through. So before we kind of start to look for positions, let's do some analysis of the higher time frames. Let's take a look at the daily chart. Right, unfortunately I can't draw an MT4 as far as I'm aware, but essentially you can see, right, we took out this high low here where my mouse is, we broke structure to the downside, right, we had a swing low, lower high, we've had a swing low to the downside. It's arguable, right, whether this high was a swing high or not, but we can see with the benefit of hindsight that when price broke it, it continued to the downside. So that wasn't really true swing structure, right? If we can use a little bit of discretion here, that we can view this movement that I'm tracking my mouse as one push down, then we've had a pullback up here, right? And then we've had another movement to the downside. So again, that's quite a sizable pullback. And we have now broken and closed above this high. So this is kind of where, in fact, let's measure it, right? So from the low to the high, that's, over 90 pips, right? It's just over 100 pips. So if you are 100% mechanical and strict, with the rule that I recommend in the course, with the daily chart on euro dollar, I would typically say that if something is more than 90 pips, then that is swing structure, okay? But me personally, I like to use a little bit of discretion on the daily chart and higher, right? But in this case, let's just be strict and say, potentially the daily chart is bullish, but I'd be very aware that overall we're quite bearish and we're coming up and towards this daily sort of supply area up here, right? If we were to draw a box in it, right? And what else do we notice is that this swept the high behind there, right? So essentially we have a sweep zone. I hate the analysis on MT4, but you get the idea, right? So that's a pretty decent area where I'd definitely be looking, we could see, a decent pullback or potentially a reversal from that level. But until we get there, I think we can look to continue for longs, especially after we've broken this high now up and towards this daily supply level. And then we can reassess how the 4 hour and the M15 start to shape up around there. So that's the daily chart. I'll kind of minimize that for now. And let's take a look at the 4 hour chart. So what I'm actually going to do is just see where that overlays with the 4 hour chart. So we click that, should appear. Okay, so yeah, so that's where we know roughly we need to start potentially being aware that the 4 hour chart may pull back or reverse from this area. Okay, so 4 hour chart, we can see we were bearish and then we have clearly switched bullish. Okay, so we've taken out, I'll zoom in a little bit. All right, we've taken out, this was a sizable pullback. Okay, so that is our swing break of structure. And then let's measure these. Oops, wrong button. Still getting a bit used to this. All right, there we go. So that's over 40 pips. Was that 40 pips? It's a bit tight, but either way, we just want to get to where we are on current price action. So I would say that is definitely a swing break of structure. And then is this 40 pips? No. Okay, so this would be my current swing low on the 4 hour chart, I believe. It's a little bit harder to analyze on TradingView, but yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with that. Okay, so we've pulled back into this area of demand, right? Clearly broke these highs. We're pulling back from this area of supply over here. So old areas of supply become what? They become reaction points for pullbacks, okay? So we're currently coming into this 4 hour demand zone here. Now, be a bit cautious of demand zones like this. Why? One, because it has a clean push. You see how it's a straight movement up, so there's no structural liquidity. Zoom in a little bit. In the leg, right? So essentially what that can mean is this can become inducement for itself for lower prices. Also, it didn't sweep any liquidity, right? This low here didn't sweep a prior structural low. So I'd be pretty cautious of that. And I actually quite like the zone below. So what I would do is I would keep an eye on both, right? We've already mitigated this level anyway, but I much prefer this level down here. And the reason why, like I said, is because this can be structural inducement for this wick zone here. And also, what is it? It's a sweep zone, right? Because it swept the liquidity below those lows there. So, but we have to be mindful, right? If this is our swing low, price could come all the way down towards this wick 2. Okay, just gonna make sure this appears onto our M15 chart. So if we look at the M15, price has broken sort of structures to the downside, and we are now pulling back in towards our 4 hour POI. We've had a bit of a reaction from these levels here. Let's zoom in a little bit and see if we can see anything a little bit more clearly. There's nothing really standing out to me. Got a spike through that zone that's failed, and we've come off the decisional down here. Right, we have had a bullish change of character to the upside, but yeah, It's not looking too strong just yet because you see how impulsive this movement is. Now we've had a corrective pullback. So I'd be a lot more interested in trading from, if I just refine the zone down into this extreme candle down here, right? So you can see what I've now done is this M15 candle that I'm desperately trying to draw this box around. It's so clunky. On a 2-4 is essentially our refined M15 zone within our 4-hour POI. Our 4-hour POI is a sweep zone. It has structured inducement. So straight away, right, this becomes an area in which I'd be more than happy to set a risk entry on, okay? So that's what we're going to do actually is we are going to, right, so you have a few options when you set entries, especially risk entries as well, is you can either set it on the distal, so on the edge of the zone, excuse me, you can set it on the EQ, so the 50% level, or of course you could use a fixed stop loss. For this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 25% rule. So essentially what this is it's a Fibonacci tool that has the 0.25 and 0.75 selected. And essentially what I'll do is if it's a long, I'll enter on the top 25%. And obviously if it's a short, right, I'd enter on the bottom 25%. Okay, so how the way I'm going to do this, right, is stop just below the low, and then I'm going to have our entry on the 25% level there, okay? And I would be more than happy with that. So now we have our buy limit set, okay? So again, quick recap of the high time frames. 4 hour, we're clearly bullish. We're looking to trade up and towards this daily extreme supply zone. We've come back down into this decisional. However, it's got a straight push. There's no structural liquidity in the leg. And we have a nice sweep zone below that. So kind of, you know, yeah, it's a pretty decent zone there with inducement in front of it. And we have our nice M15 POI nested within that 4 hour zone. And we've now set a buy limit on there. However, we are rejecting demand from here and we have had a bullish change of character. However, it's very, very corrective, impulsive down. I'm not really liking the look of that just yet. And we are literally in, you know, bang on the start of the Asian session. So I'm going to play price forward a little bit and see how we get on here on the M15. Okay, it's looking like we're going to, okay, we've just taken that low. Yeah, okay. Just seeing if we're going to come into anything down here. Let's at least wait for a bullish change of character. We don't get that just yet. Okay, so we've had a pretty aggressive movement away from our 4 hour zone. You can see it's just tapped into our 4 hour zone if we zoom in a little bit. Right, so we've had aggressive move away into our demand zone. We've had a bullish change of character on the M15, then we've shot up. So have we mitigated anything of note? We've come into this level down here, right, this wick zone. So that does make sense. We are mitigating something, right? That was a kind of a last mitigation there as well, we see. So this is what I mean, right? A lot of the times I'm not going to have every single POI drawn on my charts because it's just unnecessary. But when price reacts aggressively to something, I'm going to look left and I'm going to start to build the story, right? Does this make sense? Yes, we have a series of mitigations. We've swept a low coming into our zone. We've had a bullish change of character. It's also backed up by the 4 hour POI. And we've had an aggressive move away now, okay? So I'm going to leave my order on the extreme just because I like that level. However, you know, that's a pretty decent move. Let's see what happens with the next candle. Yeah, okay, I'm going to set an entry order on this, okay? So if we get our Fibonacci level, right, draw that from the high to the low, okay? And then we can set a buy limit on that. Okay, so on the 25%. Now you can cover that below there, but I'm a little bit cautious of the wick. So yeah, let's give that just below. It's only about 5.1 pip stop. So yeah, we'll set that there. Now, in terms of trade management, I don't think I spoke about this already, but essentially my plan with this is I'm going to use a little bit of discretion with it. I'm not going to be super mechanical. Kind of the main reason for that is it's a little bit harder on this software to kind of, I can't set multiple TPs like I would with partials when I use my trade assistant on MT4 for my live trading. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of set that, you know, you setting essentially 25% of 4R and whatnot. So I'm going to use essentially discretion here, but obviously with logic, we're going to target weak structure. We're going to look at the nearest supply and demand zones, etc. And we'll do it that way. And hopefully you guys will learn something from that. So, right, again, to recap this, I'm going to leave this extreme limit order on just in case that does get hit and we get stopped out here. It is quite a straight push, but I do like it swept the liquidity behind that low. So yeah, I'm liking the entry so far. But in terms of the higher time frames, right, we are bullish. We've pulled back into that decisional, which we've now swept, and we've come down into kind of It's not the extreme, because the extreme of the 4-hour leg for me would be down here, but this is a sweep zone, right? It's swept the liquidity behind those lows, led to a break of structure. It's got this inducement in front of it. We've now tapped into it. We look left, doesn't make sense. Yes, there's a series of mitigations here on the M15. We've had an aggressive move away. We had a bullish change of character. We also took out multiple levels of supply, right? This supply level failed, this supply level failed. So that's a pretty good indication. A lot of momentum. What I also like about this is the session timing, right? 7:30, so around Frankfurt Open. London's technically 8, but still the London session. More than happy to look for trade entries around here. So let's see if we get tagged in. Okay, it's quite a big spike. We are now within the trader case. You can see this first or second order here. We've been tagged in. And then let's see how this goes. Let's see if we can break that high. Okay, right. I'm gonna cancel this order down the bottom now. That's buy limit. Okay, so because we're trading pro 4-hour and pro daily trend, arguably the pro daily trend, it's a bit, bit of a debate whether or not, look at the daily again, whether or not this is a swing high or not, but it's a pretty decent break of structure. So definitely going to be targeting up and towards this daily supply level here. So yeah, let's minimize that and keep the 4-hour. So at a minimum, really, we should be looking to target this 4-hour high. If we can see if we can get a break of structure, but we have to be aware that this is the decisional, right? So what can often happen with decisionals is you can get a reaction from here for price to push up and then come down lower in towards the extreme. And then that's when you can see the move. Okay, so we do have to be aware of that. We have some supply zones up here as well, but technically this should be a weak 4-hour high that we can now look to target. So let's press forward a little bit more and see how this goes. So we can start to think about scaling in. So if I wasn't in a position already, I'd probably be looking at getting in on this level here, but it's quite near to my entry. So I'm not going to be too aggressive. I'm kind of coming into this supply level here now. We do have this sweep zone here. It's quite an aggressive scaling, to be honest. It hasn't really done anything. It's broken this high here. You could chase it a little bit, but it's a little bit aggressive for me, and we're coming into high impact news. So we have the news down here. We have ADP, NFP, essentially non-farm employment. That's usually the day before the true NFP, so we might see a decent reaction from that, but it's not really something I want to trade through. Okay, we've brought into that wick now. Okay, news has shot that forward. Let's see if we can clear this 4-hour high now. Okay, looking like we've cleared that high, so I'm going to take some partials on this trade. Okay, let's close 50% of that trade as it is pro trend, and I do think we can get up towards that daily supply zone, so we'll close 50% of that trade. Okay, right, so let's zoom out. Where are we now? We've had a break of 4-hour structure. We haven't closed above it just yet, but we're coming. Well, we already had a mitigation from this supply zone here. That's reacted. It's failed to put in a low and we're pushed up. Now coming to this daily supply zone, but there's not really anything clear on the 4-hour chart. We've got this big wick, but it's all pretty messy. Let's play this forward a little bit more. We do have this M15 flip zone here, but it's quite high up the leg. Not something I'm in love with, but you see how it reacted to the supply zone. It's pushed up, so you could look for potential scalings there. Let's play this forward a little bit. Okay, yeah, that would have worked out nicely. We've pushed up high now. We are coming to daily supply, but that wouldn't really put me off until really we start to kind of break down, at least on the lower time frames. We could potentially look in for a scaling. So because we're getting so much momentum here, right? This is where I'd be more than happy to kind of, again, I'm hesitant to use the word chase, but we can follow price, especially with this momentum going to the upside. This was the last mitigation. So yeah, let's put an order on that. Let's see, buy limit. So it looks quite big. Put 25% on. Cool, just double check higher time frames are all good. We've spiked up above this 4-hour zone now, so let's see if we can get in a little bit higher. Accept that. And then, okay, let's play this forward. We are coming towards the end of the London session, so it's not ideal now. Okay, we haven't made a higher high just yet on the M15. So this is the last sort of M15 low. Okay, that would be tagged us in now. Coming through the Asian session spread hours, which isn't ideal. So probably in reality, I would have pulled that order until spread hours had calmed down. But we didn't get spiked out, fortunately. So it's kind of, oh, it looks like we're going to get stopped out. Place forward to the London session. Hopefully the volume will take this in. Okay, so still in the trade. Okay, so London session is kind of picking up. Where are we on the 4-hour chart? Yeah, there's just nothing clean there at all in terms of supply. So I'd be waiting for at least the M15 to start to break down before I'd be really thinking about shorts just yet. these are weak highs, right? They failed to make a low. That looks like that liquidity is just going to get smashed. Wouldn't really want to be trading short from here. I mean, you could take a hedge from that, but yeah, not for me, because that low, right, it hasn't even taken out this low here. So these lows have done nothing. Nice equal highs, right? That to me just looks like it wants to get smashed. Now, we haven't got the best entry, right, because it's quite a wide entry. But if I was looking at this now and if I wasn't already in it, what I like about this is, right, we've pulled back, we've mitigated this POI, and now we've essentially broken this internal structure to the upside. Coming to the London session, I'll probably be looking at setting an order on this low, but obviously we're already in a trade that we haven't removed any risk from, so I'll be leaving that there. Let's play this forward a little bit and see how this develops. We can take out these highs and I'll partial some profits. Pretty heavy as well as we're coming into that daily supply zone now. Okay, so looking like that zone is holding, which obviously can happen. So you can trade from these, but that'd be more something I'd be looking to trade an M1 entry from, not necessarily an M15 entry from, because you're trading from that weak high. So really, I think this will just be a reaction to provide liquidity, right? Basically a more significant double top for us than target. So for me, the risk to reward isn't really there with the M15 yet, because we haven't even had a change of character, right? We haven't taken out the most recent internal low. So yeah, that wouldn't really be a short for me that I'd want to take if I was trading the M15. Let's wait for these highs to go. Okay, the high has gone now, so I'm going to take some heavy partials on this trade because it's still pro trend, but we're kind of coming into that daily level. Let's take off a bit more on this one because we are higher up in the leg. I'm going to take off 80%. Okay, so we're pushing up higher now. Let's zoom out a little on the 4 hour. So keep an eye on that. Okay, we're going to take some more partials as well from our previous entry down here. We'll just close 50% of what we got left. Cool. Okay, so let's place one more candle, see if we can get a good closure above there. Right, so let's look for potential more scale-ins. Right, we have this last candle here. So let's draw that on. Essentially what was happened, right, is we've pulled back in and we didn't quite hit this sell to buy that we were looking at. Right, but remember, it doesn't always have to hit the refined pivot. Essentially, it's hit, that would be like a 30-minute sell to buy, right? And what that means is when price then moves away, if it doesn't hit your POI, you can then adjust this to the range, understand what's going on, right? It's mitigated this level. We've then broken structure to the upside, so this then becomes our last mitigation, right? It's swept the lows behind here, right? So that's a pretty nice sweep zone. Again, we are trading against the steady supplies level, but it's a massive level. I'm more than happy to keep looking for aggressive entries with just in this case, right? Of course, you don't have to do this if it doesn't meet kind of your style. So let's chuck on a fib tool on this POI, right? I'm just going to keep scaling in until structure starts to break to the downside, right? The trend is your friend until it ends, or whatever the phrase is. So stop loss behind the low. Looks like it's going to be quite big, 8.5 pips. Yeah, okay. We'll keep being mechanical. We'll keep doing that rule. I was going to go to the EQ just to kind of increase the RR there a little bit, but let's see what happens. Okay, doesn't look like it wants to come back. Just trying to work out what I want to do here. I'm going to delete this daily level just because so we can actually see price action. I'm aware of it, but yeah, maybe come up into this 4 hour wick here and see how we go. We zoom in, we've also got some 4 hour POIs that have been created, right? Yeah, you can see this move here, right? We pulled back down, we've come up. So we do have a 4 hour POI here that we have to be wary of, that we can potentially look for longs if price was to come down. And obviously we have these POIs down here as well, but we can draw those on even when price comes back to it. So yeah, potentially you could look for a long from here, continuation scaling, but I'm a bit hesitant. Obviously, we're getting quite high up in the leg now. We are in that daily supply zone. This is a clean push, right? There's no inducement in the leg. It didn't really sweep any liquidity, right? It's taken the low behind this candle, but it's arguable. Is that an M15 sweep, or that's more like that would be a sweep on the M5 or the M1, right? It's not really structural liquidity on this time frame. That's something I'm still really kind of trying to actually figure out in my own trading at the moment, collecting a bit more data on that, whether or not I would classify this as a sweep. It's something that I used to call a sweep, right? Because I viewed that there would be liquidity behind this wick, that prices then come down and swept, but it's not as ideal. It's kind of hard because I can't draw an MT4, but essentially you want to see, if you follow my mouse, right, a movement up, a clear pullback, then a movement up, and then a break of that low, right? Because it's a clear structural low, whereas this for me isn't. So I'm not going to classify that as a sweep for now. Let's see if that holds. Okay, price is pushing a little bit higher. We continued to the upside. Okay, So it's looking pretty good. Potentially we could look again at scaling in. Didn't quite come into that level. This would be our level here. Just going to delete this box. Cool. So what's the session timing? We're coming towards the end of the day. Yeah, so I'm going to look for any entries around spread hours. Let's play this forward a little bit. Okay, we're pushing up higher now. Zoom out on the 4-hour chart. Have we come up to those highs yet? Not just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially wait for the M15 to have a bearish change of character, and then I'm going to start to look to manage these positions a lot more aggressively, because we are getting high up in that leg now into those extreme supply zones through the Asian session. Let's see, if we take this low here, I'm going to get out. Do we spike that low? Let's have a look. Not yet. Okay, we've taken out that low. What I'm going to do is just, because we've had now that bearish change of character, let's close. How much do we have? We've got four lots left. Let's just close it all. Get out of that, and then we'll get out of this. We'll cancel that buy limit, just because we're getting pretty high now. Probably could have left it on a little bit longer. We've got high impact news as well. What's that? Yeah, NFP. So this is a big news announcement. Definitely not going to be holding positions into that. So let's zoom in a little bit actually on the M15. Get rid of this. Cool. So what's happened on the higher time frames? We're coming up into this extreme supply level. We're obviously still extremely bullish. The M15 has had a bearish change of character, but it's looking pretty messy. Don't want to look for any longs, don't want to look for any shorts, and we've got NFP coming up. Okay, if we didn't have NFP, I'd probably look at this zone here. Why? Because essentially we have, right, that supply there, that's swept the high behind here, and we're in 4-hour and daily supply. The 4-hour supply is not clean because it's essentially this big wick here, but that wick, what did it do? It swept the liquidity behind these highs here, right? And then it led to this large move here, that break of structure. So essentially the POI I'm referring to, right, it's essentially that daily zone as well as that big wick there. But I'm just going to delete it because it's messy and big. But essentially I'm aware of it, okay? So yeah, and the 4 hours still clearly bullish. I don't really want to be shorting against that just yet. And we've got NFP, so let's play NFP out and see how we go. It's a bit slow. Let's play this forwards. Okay, Burma, yeah, we would have got absolutely smashed if we had done that with a fair bit of slippage as well. Okay, so the 4 hours continuing to be bullish. We do have another POI now here as well, so we can draw that on. Let's make sure that's not selected when I click clone. Okay, so this is our 4 hour POI here. So let's play this forward into next week. So essentially what we've got, right, it's Friday, it's New York, we've had NFP, we've had a big move. So whenever that happens, I'm done for the weekend, right? Go and enjoy your life or work on other things, come back to the charts on Monday. So let's play this forward until Monday and see where we are at. Okay, so doing my analysis for the week ahead. We know we're in that daily and 4 hour supply zone. I would be very aware now that we're probably going to have a 4 hour pullback at least, but potentially we could see, a 4 hour bearish trend change because we are in, remember, let's have a look. That's the daily, right? So let's minimize the 4 hour chart. We are within this daily zone now. And actually, let's have a look what's happened. All right, we just spiked that daily high. So we've had that external range liquidity swept now. So yeah, I would probably expect a decent move, and we can start to look back down and towards this daily flip zone around here, right? This reacted to this supply. So I think that'd be some pretty decent targets to look for that daily pullback into that low. But I'm also cautious of, right, if we look at the trend, we've had a swing low, a swing high, we've had a movement down. Right, that was just a grab of liquidity behind these highs, and then we've continued to the downside. So there's every possibility this could also be, right, a sweep of liquidity, but it's not super clear because that is a decent bit of structure, right? That looks like a reasonably clear swing to me. So yeah, I would be a bit unsure whether or not we're going to see just essentially a daily pullback from this sweep, a pullback maybe into around this decisional supply zone, this flip zone, and then we'd form a high low and continue, or whether we might see what we saw over here and continue down to the low. So if I'm unclear, right, look at the 4 hour chart. What's the 4 hour chart saying to us? Does that clear things up for us a little bit? Well, we're clearly bullish on the 4 hour chart. We're coming into that extreme supply. You can see with this big spike, we've swept the liquidity behind these highs here. So until the 4 hour switch is bearish, I'm going to continue having that long bias, but that doesn't mean that we can't look to play the pullback. So where is my current swing low? Well, if we look at this level here, this was over, so that's a 50 pip pullback, right? So that's over 40 pips. How big was this? That's only 22 pips, right? So this would be my last swing low here. Okay, so let's draw that on. And then we know if we take out this low, that would be the 4-hour switching bearish, okay? We haven't had a bearish change of character. So this is the last internal pullback on the 4-hour chart. So I need to see this low get wicked for that 4-hour chock. And then what can we expect? If we have a 4-hour change of character, we can expect that 4-hour pullback. And then we have a few demand zones to look at. So we have this level here, right, where we can look for a potential high low. Okay, and then we also have this level down here, right? It's starting to get a little bit messy, but fortunately that's just what we have to work with MT4. Okay, so then we have this level as well. So yeah, essentially what I'll be looking for is to see if we can break this low on the 4-hour chart. That will give us a 4-hour chock. Then we can look for pullbacks down and towards the swing low. So when prices like this, right, it's trending between a big M15 high and M15 low, it's messy. I'm just going to sit on my hands and wait for either the low or the high to go, and then we can reassess. All right, where price is at, hasn't quite gone yet. All right, I'm not interested in any of this. Okay, now we've broken out. So let's delete this zone here. Clear things up a little bit. Okay, so we've taken out this low. M15 has now obviously switched bearish. We have this large 4-hour POI. I'm going to delete it just because I want to kind of tidy that up on M15 because it's such a large zone. Okay, so now we've had our 4-hour chock. Okay, so now we have a 4-hour POI to work with. So now it's getting a little bit clearer. All right, we have this buy to sell here. Okay, so that instantly becomes an area in which I'm now interested in to look for shorts to play a potential pullback. But I have to be aware there is some, very minor demand down here. So on the M15, if we make that appear on the M15, let's see if we can find any zones within here. So let's paint the story a little bit. This is our 4-hour POI. If we look at the M15 price section, right, we had a mitigation here from this buy to sell. Okay, so then I would be looking at this candle within here, right? And we can look for, see this, and that the way these rectangles draw, it's really annoying because it's not clear at all compared to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to refine this zone, if I can do it, to this M15 buy to sell within the 4-hour POI, and then hopefully update that on there as well. Cool. Okay. But we also have this level here. I'd be happy to hit that, right? We're trailing down with a lot of momentum. What I like about this as well is it swept liquidity behind these highs here, right? So we came down and come up and swept that liquidity. We've mitigated this previous buy to sell range here, right? This buy to sell, we've come up and hit that, and then we've come down with a hell of a lot of momentum. So what's the session time? When we come into London session, yeah, I'll be happy to whack a sell limit on there. All right, let's measure the 25-75 rule. Okay, see how we get on with that. Going to be quite aggressive here because we're trading at the top of the move. There's plenty of risk to reward for this to pull back. So yeah, let's see how we get on. Start the London session. We have a sweep zone, playing a simple continuation. But yeah, obviously aware that price could come up higher up towards that 4-hour buy to sell, but it does not have to. So, okay, we're pushing down. I don't really want to chase price just yet. This could become inducement for above. Let's see, maybe we'll miss it. Okay, leave this order on then. Coming into New York. Just missed this. Let's see. We haven't broken the low yet, so this could just be inducement, so I'll leave it on. Let's drag this across a little bit. All right, we still could get tagged in here. Let's see. It's not ideal though, it's kind of getting into late of the day. London's closing. Yeah, London's closed now. Where is spread hours? Kind of don't really want to trade through spread hours, so we don't get, I'm going to pull the order. We can reset it after 10 p.m. GMT. So you see how the current price is here, but the red line has jumped up. That's the ask price, right? So that's the spreads blowing out. So don't want to be triggered into any trades during this time until the spread's narrow, because you can get in. So at least wait till 11 o'clock. Okay. Yeah, not ideal trading during the Asia session, but screw it. Let's put it on. Let's trade this now. Back to where it was, 25%. Stop behind the high. Right, so again, remember, we're trying to trade this 4-hour pullback. This is a sweep zone, mitigated this buy to sell. It's got plenty of inducement below it, right? So let's drag it across so you guys can see what I'm actually trading. Okay, we're in the trade. We're straight out. Okay, cool. Not to worry. Losses happen. We've still got this level up above. In fact, I'm definitely going to set a limit on this one. And this is what I was trying to say at the start, right? If you want to have the highest strike rate possible, right, you want to be trading from M15 POIs nested within those 4 hour POIs, right? Because that's going to give you the highest probability, right? But I was happy to be aggressive in this case and kind of follow price action as it was going, because it does not have to pull back. Or even, you know, we could get a tradable reaction from here, get, you know, 5 or 6R, and then take our profits and then let price pull back, and then we can look to get short here. Okay, so this is quite a small zone, so I don't particularly, I mean, how many, it's less than 3 pips, right? I don't really want to refine it any more than that. I'm a bit wary of these equal highs here, but, you know, remember my personal view on liquidity is react to it rather than necessarily anticipate it's going to be swept, because liquidity is everywhere in the market. You know, if you're always scared of it, then you're going to find yourself missing a lot of trades. I'm going to try and do my best to keep these tools deleted actually, so we can try and keep the charts nice and clear. So again, we've had a 4 hour bearish change of character. We know we're coming off that extreme 4 hour and daily supply to the left. We swept that daily swing high as well. So there's potential we're going to get that pullback now, right? We're putting back up into this 4 hour buy to sell. We've got an entry on a refined M15 supply zone within the 4 hour buy to sell, right? It's where the last mitigation was, but it's not ideal, right? There's really perfect equals there. So potentially we might come up into this extreme, but we can look for an entry up there if we push up higher. We have some nice clear lows to target down towards this 4 hour POI, but potentially even lower into the extreme. So yeah, let's play this forward and see how we get on. Okay. All right, so we're tagged in, but what I was just thinking of is what we probably could have waited for is, you see how price moved up and then it had a little pullback here, right? This candle here failed to break the previous candle's high. That means that now if price comes down and wicks this low, we would have then had an M15 bearish chock, right? An internal change of character. And then we could have looked to set a confirmation entry on this level, which probably would have been a hell of a lot nicer, especially with that amount of momentum coming in. And we are counter the 4 hour trend, remember? So that definitely would have been a safer entry. Okay, now there's a flip zone as well, right? Because you see what's happened here. We zoom in. All right, we had this demand here, right? That pushed up to that high. Price has come in. It's reacted and pushed down. So now you can look to sell. I'm just going to delete this to keep it clear. Actually, we'll just drag it across. You can look to, I mean, this is a bit of a messy candle, but you can essentially sell within this candle. It also swept liquidity behind these highs here, right? Boom. So hard to draw on this, but yeah, anyway, you guys know what I'm trying to do, right? It's swept the liquidity behind that high and then prices pushed down. So we have a change of character taking out this low. We have this demand flipping to supply, right? And now you would look to get in this buy to sell. You could refine it even more potentially to that wick, but yeah, that essentially would be an entry I'd be looking at. I'll tell you what, let's take it. Let's because we're trading right from the extreme, right? There's a lot of risk to reward here. Yeah, I like this for scanning. I'll be happy to take that. So let's use the fib tool to try and be consistent with that, right? So essentially we'll draw it on this flip range here. We haven't quite come into 25%. But yeah, you see how this candle here, this is when we close below the reaction. So we've got to change the character as soon as we wicked it with this candle, right? But we didn't close below the reaction until this candle here. So this is why I'm now happy to set the order. We have already tapped into the buy to sell. So yeah, potentially I might not get triggered, but let's see. 25%, but I'll stop just above the high. All right, it gives us about 3 pips, so it's quite tight, but zoom out again. Okay, cool. So hopefully you guys can understand the logic behind this, right? Playing this 4 hour pullback from the buy to sell, we've hit our refine zone, and now we're scaling in with the chock and flip, but this also could have been a much safer first entry, especially as we're trading counter to the 4 hour trend, right? See what happens. Ooh, that was close. What's the session timing? Probably should have given it a bit more of a pip buffer, but oh, okay, it's not too bad. See how we go. All right, okay, I'm gonna just delete this just to try and keep the charts nice and clear so we can see what's happening. Okay, so we're in 2 positions now. I'm gonna leave them open until we kind of see if we can breach these lows, because you know, there's a lot of risk to reward on the table here. So probably partial as we get down towards these lows here, as we are still counter to the 4 hour trend. I'm just gonna tidy this flip zone up a little bit. All right, so now we've wiped out these zones here. Clear move to the downside. We're coming to the London session. So I would be looking at this last sell to buy here, right? If I would, but we're already in 2 positions and I haven't removed any risks. So I'm not going to load up into any more positions at this point. What's happened here? So we've kind of come into this demand zone. right? I wouldn't have wanted to look for a long from here, even though it's pro 4-hour trend, but it's because we've had that 4-hour chalk. We're expecting a 4-hour pullback. These are weak M15 lows, right? Because they haven't really formed any highs. They've broken these minor highs here, but it's not really a level I'd want to necessarily trade from, but we definitely could have taken a hedge there. Yeah, that would have been a nice hedge actually, because that was a sweep zone, right? Swept the lows behind here. Obviously it was a last mitigation as well. So yeah, that definitely makes sense, right? You see how there's bullish order flow. It did take out a few levels of supply. Nice inducement in the legs. That could have been, yeah, definitely a hedge there, which would have been nice to take, but we've missed it. Just about staying in. Hopefully this POI can hold. Okay, nice reaction to that POI. So yeah, that would have been an entry as well. Definitely a valid entry. And this is something, right, you guys might want to think about. I haven't done it with this obviously testing exercise here, but if you know you're only going to be on the charts and you're only going to set entries during, you know, the London session or the New York session, right, or whatever session you trade, you probably in your testing only want to record trades during that. Sorry, I've just noticed in the corner of my eye we don't have news set to Euro and USD. But yeah, the point I was trying to talk about there. Okay, so the next one is in 2 days. Cool. So yeah, you might only want to record trades, right, that you're only going to set during the times that you're on the charts, because it's going to give you a much more realistic idea of what performance to expect, right, with your strategy. So obviously we were entering trades around the Asia session here. Now you might be happy to set like a trade like this. I would be reasonably happy to set that whilst I go to bed, right, and you know be entered during the Asian session because it's within the 4-hour POI. It's the extreme. You know, there's a lot of confidence behind this. We've had that 4-hour change of character coming into daily supply after wicking the high. There's a lot of risk to reward here. Boom, I'd be happy to take that. But then even if you didn't and you come into London, right, now you have a clear trade following the mitigations. This was the last buy to sell, right? It's swept again. It's another sweep zone, right? It sweeps the liquidity behind these highs here. That's a pretty decent POI to look to short from. And then that could have been your first initial entry here, right? Yeah, I mean, the hedge I'd only really take if I was already in a short. I definitely wouldn't be wanting to get long from here if I wasn't already in a short, right? Because it's a very, very risky trade. And yeah, I would expect that low to go, okay? So we're breaking to the downside again, just order flow, right? Another mitigation. I'm not going to look to put an entry in this just because we've got 2 trades already and I haven't removed any risk just as of yet. Let's see. Okay, pretty aggressive retrace, mitigating this wick. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit because I'm very cautious. Actually been going for a long time. We're only a week into the month. Okay, so that zone's held as well. Basically what I'm waiting now for is these lows to go, and then I'm going to take some pretty decent partials because we are counter trend. And I'm personally, you know, reasonably aggressive on management. I don't want to swing for the fences, pay myself, move on, trade the next range. Okay, so we have this zone here. It's weak because it's failed to take out this low. But this is where, you know, sometimes structure might not, well, how do I explain this? Okay, so this movement here, right, where we had this push down, right, it's failed structurally to take out the low, this low here. So that means where my mouse is now is, from a structure standpoint, this is a weak high because it's failed to make a new low. Now, that doesn't mean that price has to trade higher, because what do we look at after market structure? Well, the next confluence we look at is supply and demand, right? And if we look at supply and demand, who is in control, who is holding, and who is failing? Well, we can see a series of supply zones holding, and what's been happening down here. This demand zone here, right, it's failed. Prices spike through. Prices come up again, hold, supply is held, and push down. Now, in this case, this demand zone's held so far, but, you know, if I was going to be a betting man, I'd probably say supply is in control here. So that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to look to get short, but it's just to have an understanding of why, you know, sometimes highs might not get run. It's because supply is taken over. There we go, and the demand has now failed, and we've pushed down through. So yes, you could have looked from an entry from here, but just understand that it's very aggressive because this supply zone failed to do its job at that point, right? But yeah, obviously it played out because supply is holding itself. We have the supply chain holding now. Okay, we haven't taken out this low just yet, but we have formed another zone, so potentially we may get more mitigations here. Let's try and tidy this up a little bit. All right, see how we go on. Coming into New York now, so we might see some decent volatility. Boom, there we go. Okay, so we pushed down through the lows. I'm going to take some partials on these now. Okay, so running 12% on this. So it is counter trend, and we're coming into this 4-hour POI here. So I'm going to be pretty aggressive with my management here. I'm going to take 80% off, not 580. That would work. There we go. Cool, and I'm going to do the same on this one as well. Is this one right? No, it's the top one. Boom. Okay, cool. Right. So where are we in higher time frames? We had a change of character. We pulled back into our 4-hour buy to sell where we had 2 entries. I'm going to move these both to break even, just so I can actually keep the charts a little bit cleaner. We've taken out this sort of low here now, but we are coming into this 4-hour level of demand. It's a very weak level of demand. It didn't really do much other than take out this high. And don't forget, right, daily time frame obviously outweighs the 4-hour chart, because remember, if we zoom out, this is daily supply, this whole area daily supply, and we've swept that high, right? That's really significant when you sweep external range liquidity. So we could be having that daily pullback down into around this daily flip zone. I'll show you guys on the charts in case we've forgotten. Right, this daily demand zone down here, because this is where that took this high, right? It reacted from the supply zone, right? This candle touched into the supply zone, pushed down, and then demand came in to push this movement up. So we could see a movement down towards here. But if we get that low, the 4-hour chart will be bearish. So yeah, we'll reassess that as and when we get to it. Grab some water. Okay, so yeah, we're coming into New York. Let's zoom into the 4-hour chart. We know we're coming into 4-hour demand. Not really in love with it to look for longs, but if we get some bullish changes of character, then yeah, then we can totally do that. Let's see if there's any M15 POIs to be aware of, so we can refine that 4-hour a little bit. Okay, we have this old one over here, remember? We were looking at trading this originally, so let's drag this across. Let's keep an eye on this. Potentially we can look for some longs from here. It is a sweep zone. It has inducement, right? And if we zoom out, right, it led to that break of structure. It's pro trend, so we can actually take an entry on this. Right, I would be happy to take an entry on this, even though I can get the right tool selected. There we go. Okay, cool. So the reason why is this is an M15 POI nested within a 4-hour POI. It's swept liquidity. It led to a break of structure, right? Really pretty decent move. It has inducement below it, and it's pro the 4-hour and arguably the daily trend, right? So yeah, I'd be happy to set a limit on that, especially as it's a hedge against the short positions we are already in. So looks like it's quite a big zone though. Oops, that's our entry one, isn't it? Yeah, cool. And then stop just below the low. I think I've done that the wrong way around. Let's buy limit. There we go. Cool. 25%, and then stop just below there. We'll round that up to 9. Go on and do my chart OCD. There we go. Boom. Cool. So yeah, hopefully you guys can understand the logic behind that. Cool. And then we'll drag this in. Let's play price forward a bit. Okay, so 4-hour POI, M15 refined, sweep zone, inducement, coming down with a lot of momentum. So you could wait, right? Especially as like we've had that daily sweep and we're coming off daily supply. This is a bit riskier. So what you could do is wait for price to come in and give us that bullish change of character before trying to kind of, you know, catch this low here. So we've been tagged in. Girl coming down with a fair amount of momentum. We have these POIs to be aware of as well. All right, we have this buy to sell. Let's take the refined candle. So let's see how price reacts. We might just get, okay. So again, we've pushed right up into here. I'm just debating whether or not to kind of, it's a bit late now, but take a sell limit here. But it's a clean push, it's kind of further down in the leg. It didn't sweep liquidity, right? It didn't sweep this high. It could be just inducement for above. So I prefer to sell from this zone up here actually, because that was the last mitigation. So let's put a limit on that. Okay, and then we can really hedge this market both ways. So let's see where the 25% is. Okay, there we go. Cool, give that a little bit of a buffer. Let's see if we can clear this supply or not. Doesn't look too good. Yeah, it looks like that supply is going to hold. Oh, we're just about in. So if I was looking for a bullish change of character, right, you would need to see this high go first. But I would probably say with this reaction price is pretty damn volatile at the moment. Oh, we haven't been taken out yet. Okay, so we still yet. I'm going to delete this tool just so. Never mind. So essentially, the change of character I was looking for, right? Price has come down. It's pulled back up, and then this is a straight push down, and then essentially this is our most recent. It would be this inside bar, right? Is our most recent internal high, because price has not broken the high or the low since then. So we haven't had a change of character. This is not an internal high, right? We would need to see this high go for there to be a bullish chalk. We've kind of already tapped into this. So I probably would expect this to now fail. So I'm happy to leave the order up here. This is looking like quite a weak reaction. We already reacted above it and then pushed down below and closed below. So actually, technically, we do now have a flip zone. So it's getting pretty messy here. So we could just tap into this and die. But yeah, it's not really something I want to short from or long into. So let's see what happens. I think we are probably going to get stopped out. Spread hours. We still in the trade? Just about. Okay, I've just realized. So we've taken out this low here, right, with that spread spike, which then means our most recent eternal high then becomes here, right, our nearest high. We've then broken that high, so we've now had a bullish change of character, and essentially we've just pulled back very subtly, but we've pulled back into demand. All right, so I'll draw that on so you guys can see, right? We took this low out here, which then means this becomes our internal high. So let's see, it's a bit tricky to see in this on MT4, but I think that one, right? It's not drawing properly for me, but you guys can see it, right? And then pull back down into this essentially sell to buy here, right? We tapped into that and then we've pushed up away. So that could have been a cheeky entry, but yeah, we'll leave that for now. It's not super high probability and it's bang in the middle of the Asian session. Just about in this long. Yeah, I'm still going to leave my order up here. See if we can get tagged into the last mitigation. Up here, I'm viewing this as pretty much already mitigated. Same here as this as well. You know, we do have supply here, but I'm not going to short from that. It's just very, very messy at this point. Probably wait until London and see what happens. Probably going to get stopped out. Yeah, there we go. Not to worry. Okay, let's see if we can clearly close below. Cool. So we close below now. So that means that this 4 hour zone has completely failed. So I'd say definitely next targets we're now looking to come down into around this region here. I've only got tiny volume left on my sells from the top, so I'm going to probably take profit for those once we get down to 4 hour demand. We'll just let those runners, I think it's about 20% of each position left, maybe even less. So yeah, we'll let those run down to here. 4 hour demand's failed. So yeah, definitely expecting price to come down lower. We have some other POIs, right? We have this level up here. I'm just going to keep the charts nice and clear. And then if we can get 4 hour closure below, we'll obviously have this POI as well. So if we look at the M15, where can we scale in? I'm going to cancel this order for a minute. All right, so we were looking up here. Delete these. Okay, let's follow the mitigations, right? So we've come into this supply zone, that one I pointed out, but yeah, way too aggressive for me really to want to trade from. But it makes sense. You can see, follow the mitigations, and then we push down. So technically this becomes then a flip zone. So we have this extreme up here, right? Let's take the whole buy to sell. That would be nice. That's the last mitigation, right? Swept this high. And we push down. But we're coming into London session, so we may not pull back too deep. So let's put on, actually fancy, not that one, but here. Now this one, arguably, doesn't look like it's swept, right? Pull back, pull back, pull back. Let's see. Did it sweep the high? Just about right. So you see this candle here that I've got my mouse on? These candles here just swept that high. So technically for me, that is a sweep zone and it's a flip zone, right? Because it reacted from essentially this demand here, right? Reacted, swept that high, pushed down, and we took out these lows here. 4 hour demand has now failed. We're coming into the London session. So yeah, I'd be happy to trade from either of these really. Let's put a limit on, I'll tell you what, we'll go on both just because I'd be happy to take losses here. So we'll put one on for now and we'll see if price comes up to us. That looks like quite a small zone, so I probably wouldn't refine it. Yeah, it's less than 3 pips. So yeah, I don't really want to. Okay, we'll keep that there. Cool. Okay. Yeah, just checking everything's right. 4 hour. Cool. Let's go. Okay. Zoom out a little bit. Yeah, it's looking like we've got a pretty clean movement now, all the way down towards here. So this is looking pretty good. But I am cautious we could come back up a bit higher. So let's put this forward and see what happens. Okay. Being stopped out. Okay, let's put a limit on the one above. Might be coming up a bit higher. How big is that? 4.6. Okay, we can use the fib tool. Boom. Okay, cool. So we pushed up higher. Let's delete this. Yeah, it's going at us. Okay, so what did we react to? We reacted to that buy to sell, but yeah, I never would have set an entry order on that. arguably it's a flip zone because it's flipped this range, but it didn't sweep liquidity. It's not clear at all, right? Yeah, that's not something I put an order on. It is what it is. Price swept these highs here, tapped into the buy to sell, and that's given it enough orders. But what do we have, right? This is what I mean. Don't get pissed off if you miss a move or if you take a loss. Reassess what's happened. Well, we've swept this high. We mitigated a buy to sell. That's the last mitigation. Let's cancel that order for now. Let's follow price down. Okay, so we have that sweep. So this becomes our sweep zone, right? That's a nice zone. So I'll be happy to sell them on that. Stop buying the high. Cool. I mean, you can eyeball this, right? So when I'm backtesting, I eyeball it. I try and be a little bit quicker, right? If I'm just kind of practicing, I'm not too bothered about the stats, right? I just kind of eyeball roughly where 25% is just for the sake of time. And you guys can do that, but I'm just trying to show you now kind of how to be consistent with this. So we're approaching 4 hour demand, but not just there yet. So I'm going to continue to look for sells. Hopefully price can pull back. Almost there now. I wouldn't really want to sell on that. It's not clean at all, but maybe we won't trade higher. Okay. Do we tap into 4 hour demand? Not yet. Potentially we're reacting from that doji. Let's continue to play price forward. Okay, so we've tapped into the previous buy to sell here, right? This range, and we're pushing down. Let's see if we can get into 4 hour demand or not. That looks like we have. Yeah, we have. We've tapped into it now. So I'm going to take, I'm going to close these actually because we are counter trend. So I think the 4 hour high low is a good chance. All right, the 4 hour trend will continue until it doesn't. So because I'm just thinking, I'm debating whether or not, yeah, we've tapped into 4 hour demand, so I don't really want to now leave my order on there. So I am going to cancel that. Let's make this appear properly on the M15. Cool. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to check if there are any refined zones in that 4 hour demand zone to see if we could potentially set a risk entry on, okay? So we took that long from down here. There's nothing, yeah, so that would only really be the zone I'd be interested in, to be honest with you, is this last mitigation down here, right? So we drag that across. Now the reason why I'd be interested in this is because this is the 4 hour swing low. In fact, I'll show you. Right, this for me is a 4 hour swing low. That was just a minor pullback. So if the 4 hour bullish trend is going to continue, it should continue from this candle. It's also a sweep zone, right? Because it swept the liquidity behind these lows here. Okay, so yeah, like I said, it's pro trend. We've found a refined zone. I'm going to be happy to set my orders there. So let's put a buy limit, not a buy stop. Stop below the low. Okay, now, I mean, you can be a little bit more, I'll tell you what, we'll be a bit, because it is a risk entry, we'll put it below the 4 hour low, so below the box, just in case. It's only 8 pips anyway, and the risk order's on our side, right? If we're going to catch that 4 hour high low, this is the place to do it. Now, because we have, again, remember, this movement up here was a sweep of those extreme daily highs. Essentially, we had that daily supply zone. You always have to be in mind that if the 4 hour is going to switch bearish, then this is a time in which you can do. I'm personally happy to just keep trading with the 4 hour trend until it changes. I don't try and get too clever with the market because a lot of times the trend will continue for much longer than you think. But if you are unsure and you don't necessarily want to keep being aggressive with these pro trend trades, i.e. setting a risk entry like this, is you can either wait for the M15 to switch bullish, or you could wait for a 4 hour bullish change of character, etc. Right? But because it's pro trend, I'm just going to be happy to be pretty aggressive here. And take the loss. Now, the other thing you could do if you want to be aggressive is also be aggressive with your short. So you could have left your order on here, right? This last sort of M15 entry order. And then that way you are, a little bit more hedged. So let's zoom in a little bit. Just thinking if I want to sell from this. No, because it's way too net for our demand. Okay. I didn't tap us in. It's hit the distal. Hopefully it comes lower. Okay, so we haven't been tagged in. Right from distal, we've now had a bullish change of character. Okay, I'm going to play it for one more forward. Just want to see price close above it. Okay, now we've got a closure above. So I'll draw it on. This here becomes our bullish chalk, right? It's a straight line, right? Just imagine it's a nice straight line. This does my head in M24. We had supply here, right? So we reacted with this bearish candle. It's horribly drawn. We pushed up. So this is kind of where you have two options, right? If you want to look for a long, we've now had a bullish change of character in 4 hour demand. It's pro trend. You either have this extreme zone here, right? That white box, the way it's drawn it, or you have this decisional flip zone, right? Now, what do we know that can increase the probability? Or another way to phrase the question is, if you're not sure when you have two zones, whether to take the flip or the extreme, Remember that rule that you can use. I don't personally use it as a strict requirement. I like to use a little bit of discretion here, but for what I recommend you guys will use is if the flip sweeps liquidity, excuse me, then right, it becomes a lot higher probability to trade from the decisional. If the flip doesn't sweep liquidity, then you can set your order on the extreme. Now, in this case, it doesn't sweep liquidity. So if you were strict, you would set it down here, right? But I like to be a bit more aggressive, and in euro dollar, I don't have it as a strict requirement. So I'd be happy to take this flip here. And then what you can do, right, and sometimes I'll do this, but again, I don't necessarily want to recommend it because it's a bit riskier, is because we're trading from the 4-hour extreme demand zone, it's pro trend, right? If this 4-hour trend is going to continue, it has to continue from here. When it's in areas like that, I'm happy to be quite aggressive. So I'm going to cancel this order because the zone's already been mitigated with a decent reaction, right? So what you can do, again, I don't necessarily recommend this, is you can trade both. So you can set limits on both. Or another option is to set a limit on one and play a reaction from the other. So what I mean by that is you would set, I'm just going to use the 25% rule again, is you would set your limit on here, right? So you put a buy limit like this. Now, what you can also do, right, if you get stopped, is then play the reaction to this. So you would look price come into it, give you another bullish change of character, and then you trade the reaction. Because otherwise, if this is failing, you could take 2 losses in a row, which a lot of people, that doesn't really meet their risk tolerance. So I'm going to set one there. Let's just see if we get tapped into. Okay, I'm not going to change the risk management just yet because we're barely running 2.5%. Okay, yeah, it doesn't look good because now we've taken out the reaction, right? It's pretty much obvious we're going to fail. So at this point, well, let's see what happens in this candle. Yeah, we're out. So you could set an entry order on the extreme. Do you want to screw it? I'm going to do it just because I like this level. It is the extreme. Whenever it's the extreme and it's pro trend, I do like to be reasonably aggressive here. But like I was saying, right, you could wait for price to come in and then trade a reaction. So essentially trade the confirmation entry. So let's set a limit here. Let's go. Cool. Session timing spread hours. So I'm going to cancel that. I didn't notice that. Let's put it forward a little bit. Okay, we can set it back on. Try and speed this up a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit quicker, okay? As best I can. So let's play this forward. Nothing's going on yet. Just trading between the internal high and low. Doesn't look like it's going to come back. Okay, I'm going to cancel that order. So yeah, London's opened up now. We've got a pretty decent reaction from 4-hour demand, but we do have this supply zone here, right? So we have to be wary of that coming into, which is this level here. So on the M15, let's look at some POIs we can be mindful of. All right, we got this level here. It's high impact news coming up. What's coming up? ECB. So yeah, definitely don't want to be trading through that, but we can just observe what happens, right? So yeah, if you did leave this order on this level here that we were looking at earlier, remember, that's quite an aggressive level because obviously you're trading against 4-hour demand and counter trend, then you would probably definitely want to cancel that coming into ECB, would be my opinion. But let's see what happens. I'm not going to put on any orders until ECB's out of the way now. It's quite a small reaction for ECB actually. Okay, we pushed downs. All right, so yeah, that would have worked out beautifully if you had kept the order on. But who cares, right? You want to be doing what is going to give you, what is best long term for consistent and professional trading, and it's not going to be leaving orders on coming into an extremely high impact news event like a rate announcement on the pair you were trading, because you have to think about it. If you've got a 7-figure account and you get slipped on a 2-pip or 3-pip stop or even a 5-pip stop, right? That's serious damage. You're not going to do that. So even if you might do it on your £1,000 or $1,000 account, you need to be thinking and treating it as if it has an extra 5 zeros on the end, right? And you wouldn't do that most likely. So you can see, right, we've come into that 4-hour demand. That's a very big aggressive reaction, right? We closed back below that low. So this looks like it's probably going to get smashed now, but we'll see. So yeah, I mean, so what I'm thinking of, okay, is I'm looking at where are the POIs in which we can trade, because The 4 hour is still bullish. We've come off the extreme, but we are reacting to the supply zone. And I'm cautious of, again, this is really key what's happened up here. We've swept those big daily highs in daily supply and we're pulling back now. We've had a reaction from 4 hour demand. So if this starts to kind of push down and close below this low, then it's very likely that this low is probably going to fail because demand's failed, right? This 4 hour demand's failed and we're going to come down lower at that point, and then the 4 hour would switch bearish if that happens. But it hasn't happened. So this is what I say. And I have to remind myself every week, don't try and get too clever. Just blindly assume the trend is going to continue until it doesn't, right? So what that means is it's still bullish. So let's look for long. So what I'm looking at is all of these lows here. That's been mitigated. That was a nice, something in my eye, a nice sweep zone there. All right, it's not drawn very well, but yeah, there we go. Swept that zone, we moved up, we mitigated this level. So potentially we may see a long from here. What's the time? Coming into New York. Excuse me, but we've come off supply, a lot of reaction. We've had a bearish change of character. If I was going to be kind of aggressive, I'd probably prefer to take the extreme here. I don't really fancy trading against that. If anything, I'd be looking for a short from up here because that was the last mitigation from the sweep zone. It swept these highs here. So yeah, I'm going to whack sell limit on that. Okay, so again, this is me being reasonably aggressive, but there are times when to do it and when not to do it. And for me, this is when to do it because price action has got some nice clear POIs to trade from. I get nice big expansive moves. So I'm happy to kind of trade these because if I get short from here, there's plenty of risk to reward down towards the low. And if I get long from here, there's decent enough risk to reward up towards the supply zone. But when they're very bunched together in a tight range, that's not really the time in which you want to be doing it. Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to take a long from this just because I don't like how strong that reaction is from the 4 hour supply zone. But I'll tell you what, we'll play we'll continue to be consistent. This is one thing I try and preach as well, right? Is if you're going to be aggressive, you always need to be aggressive. You can't kind of chop and change. You need to keep your foot on the gas so that when being aggressive pays off, it pays off big. And when it doesn't pay off, then you continue to take those losses, but you keep going with it. Because if you suddenly take a few losses and then you get scared, what's going to happen is you're then going to miss those wins, right? That should have been part of your probability model. So yeah, I'm aware that this is a low. It's the last mitigation after that sweep, but I just think these lows here are going to get smashed and we can come down into the extreme. So yeah, let's play this forward and see how we go into New York. Okay, so I didn't get tagged in. That's very, very messy now. Let's see. You know what, let's leave them both there as a hedge. Okay, we're in the long. Decent reaction from that. So I was just looking at that. Okay, cool. So, okay, now we're in the shorts. Now we've got a hedge from both sides. If we take out this high, yeah, then I think we could probably go in a fair bit higher and potentially this 4 hour supply zone may fail. So this is pretty good. This is what I mean. Play the extremes, both sweep zones. You've got the market hedge both sides now and hopefully we can profit either way, which it wants to break out. Now, if you hadn't set your entry order up here, right, what do we have? We have a bearish change of character because we've come down and we've taken this low here. All right, just imagine that's a straight line. All right, that was the last pullback, came up, mitigated supply, come down and had a bearish change of character. We now have a flip zone as well, right? Because this level here was demand. And then this would be the base of your reaction to the top. All right, it's a sweep zone as well, right? Swept the high liquidity behind there. So this would be a scale in. I'll tell you what, just purely for the purposes of this this video, right? Because I kind of just want to show you just some trades just for the sake of it, right? I wouldn't necessarily do this live if I was already scaled in with no risk removed, but yeah, screw it, let's do it. So I could get absolutely slapped here, but oh well. Okay, so we've tapped the distal. Yeah, I'm going to pull that order now. Okay. So what we have now so far, right, is this where we've got long, right? The reaction is a weak low because it's failed to take out this high. So yeah, I wouldn't be looking at long entries from here if you went in already. I'm just going to leave the hedges and see which way price wants to break out. We're in spread hours now as well. Okay, just wait for this range to break out essentially. Okay, and we got stopped out on the short, but that's just fine. So, all right, we still have this 4 hour supply zone. We have had a decent reaction from it. So, technically if the 4 hour closes above this high, that is a failed reaction, which is not a good sign for shorts. We got the long. I'll take a little bit of partials, but I don't want to take much off because it's pro trend. So we are running decent profit though. I'm Just thinking it's pro trend, but we're coming into 4-hour supply. We're just taking an M15 high. I don't want to take off too much, but let's take off half. We'll take off half. Pay ourselves. Okay, cool. So zoom out a little bit, the M15. We have this supply zone above. All right. So that's still nested within the 4-hour supply zone. So this is kind of the extreme, right? A series of mitigations. So yeah, let's put a risk entry on that. From the buy to sell. Cool. Okay. Now we can zoom back in. So it's looking like, yeah, potentially these highs here are liquidity for this high here. Now this is still quite aggressive trade. I'll put the trade on so you know what I'm talking about, because it's counter the 4-hour trend, right? It's looking like 4-hour demand is holding, but you see the way we've had this, it's just, that to me looks like a corrective pullback. You see this impulsive movement down, corrective pullback. It doesn't look that strong. So this is where I'm happy to kind of, you know, still be looking for shorts, especially when we're in it long, right? So we're going to hedge it both ways. But the big reason behind this is because of this movement here. Like this is really significant, right? When we swept that daily high and daily supply, you know, there's a lot of weight behind that. So we'll set that sell there, but it is quite aggressive. So actually what would probably be better, but we can do it if it happens as well, is you would wait for price to tap in and you can trade a confirmation entry from here, okay? But coming into London, see how we go. Okay, yeah, probably would have been better to wait for confirmation entry. Probably going to get slapped here, just about held in. That trade higher? Yeah, that candle traded higher than the prior candle. So the reason why I was looking at that was just to see if we were going to get a chock here, but the most recent active internal low for me is this candle here. So as things stand, we would need to see this low go to get a bearish chock. Okay, it looks like it's playing out pretty nicely. I'm gonna leave the management of this long because I've already taken 50%. It's pro trend. Don't really want to cut myself too short any more than that in case it does break out higher. Okay, there was a zone here, so it's not great, but essentially if you really wanted to get short from here, but you're waiting for the confirmation entry and then you didn't get it, right? Where's the first reaction? We get a reaction here, so you can make sense of it. Well, what do we have? We have essentially this supply zone here. If I drag it across, right? You can see this is a buy to sell. Then price comes into it, right? From these sell to buy wicks here, it reacts, pushes down, and then pushes up, right? So this is demand here. And then what do we have? We now have supply here, right? It's very aggressive. There's no structural liquidity. It's not a sweep zone, etc., etc. But if you really wanted to get in, right, this could be a good level. But we are coming into high impact news. We've got PPI, yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily be the best. PPI is not the biggest event in the world, but still high impact news on the left. And there we go. Yeah, you get slapped. So actually, that was quite poor analysis on my behalf because remember, this was the active internal low. We hadn't yet had a bearish change of character, and price has come into this decisional here. So yeah, completely missed that. And this is the problem, right? Charts are getting very, very messy now. And also this is reasonably aggressive trading, but yeah, we'll delete that. Right, I have to think about management again. So I'm going to leave the long here. Right, we're taking 50% off. This is the short from the extreme of this 4-hour supply. So I'm pretty happy with this because if this supply is going to hold, then I've got in right from the top of it. And if it fails, I get stopped out. It is what it is. We're coming higher and we're already in the long. We haven't had a bearish change of character, so technically this is a weak high, so it probably is going to get run. Let's see what happens. News. Okay, we've continued to the downside. Okay, so now I'd probably be looking at this high here, right? If you went in, because this is now, we've got our bearish change of character. This has done what? It's pulled back, right? It's reacted from demand, okay? So again, I want to make this really clear because I know it's quite hard to see on MT4, especially if you're not used to this price action. It can be a bit hard to follow. So let's try and go through the high time frames again, right? We swept the daily high. We had an aggressive move back down. The 4-hour chart is currently bullish. If we can zoom in. Right, this is our current swing low. So we had our bearish change of character and we looked for sells on the way down, right? We looked for some long-term decisional demand. Probably, I think we took a few losses there. I can't quite remember. We then came down into our extreme demand zone, which we are currently long from, right? Because we got that. I just have a look on here. We got that. This move in here, right? We had an order on the extreme, but it didn't quite tag us in on 25%. We then moved up. We had a bullish change of character, confirming our 4-hour POI. So we looked for an entry from the decisional flip zone. We got stopped out. Not to worry. So we set a limit on the extreme down here, which we then got tagged in. Took a few losses on the hedges short, but that's fine. So we're currently long from there. Let's just put that back. Just get another drink of water. Okay. And then we took a short from the extreme within that 4 hour supply zone. So we're kind of playing, you see the ping pong of this. We're seeing which way does the 4 hour kind of want to continue, right? So that's why buying from the bottom extreme and selling from the top extreme is always going to be a highest probability. And this is why when you mess around in the middle, you see I'm taking losses, right? That's the reason why. Then this was, that was a dumb trade that I pointed out. Ignore that really. It's a flip, but at that point, right, price had pushed up. This whole leg here, all of these candles break the prior candle's high, right? So that's all part of the up move. So when price pulls back down to this point, we need this low here to go for there to be a bearish change of character, right? Price comes into demand, it pushes up, and then we get a break of the low. So now this red line that I'm about to draw is our bearish change of character, right? Giving us more confirmation maybe this POI is going to hold down this 4 hour supply. We've reacted from demand, we pushed up, we swept the structural liquidity behind this high here, right? Because price came down, it moved up and it moved down. So there's structural liquidity behind this high. Price came up, swept that liquidity and then pushed down. So now essentially anywhere from the base of this reaction to the top, right, that whole blue box, that is essentially your demand flipping to supply. So you can get short anywhere from in here. Obviously we want to refine it a little bit more than that. So I'm going to drag this up to, it's quite messy, isn't it? It's quite a big candle. We'll just take the whole buy to sell candle there. We'll use a 25% on this. Not sure how many pips that is. Let's have a look. Sell limit. Okay, we're still within the long. 6.7. Oh, yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, we'll accept that. Right, so let's see how we go with this now. Okay, tagged in. Continue down. Right, so it's getting quite messy, right? We're quite range bound. What I'm going to do is I'm going to still leave the stops open. I'm not going to take any profit yet because we've already taken 50% off the long. I don't want to take off any more because it is pro trend and we break out higher. I don't really want to take much more off than that. And we're already in the shorts. We're in 2 shorts, but I'm not going to manage these really until we can take out at least this internal low here, ideally. Let's see how this goes. Not interested in trading any of this because this is technically, well, no, it did take out that high. We could, right, if we get a confirmation issue from here, then I'll let to get involved, right? This is quite aggressive trading though. We pull down, we pull back up, we've then taken out the low. So most recent internal high technically is that candle there because it failed to break this candle's low. So if we get a break of that, that would be our chock. Let's see what happens. Spread hours. Yeah, definitely not looking for entries now. Okay, let's see if we can get another bullish change of character. Looking like we're going to get stopped out. Yeah, that demand zone's failed anyway. So you see how we've taken out that low? So let's see if we can get this low to go, now the 4 hour low to go. And then I'll start to manage those shorts. Okay, boom. Right, so let's drag this across. Have we taken that out yet? Right, yeah, we've just wicked the 4 hour low. So we haven't had a Bosch yet, but I am going to take some profits on these shorts. Let's take off. I don't want to take off too much because it does look like, because essentially what's happened here, right, is we've had a big reaction from demand. We've pushed up and we've now clearly broken below that reaction. So that means that this demand has flipped to supply. So John, I'm going to wait and see if we can get a 4 hour closure below. Before as we come into London. Is that candle going to close below? Let's see. Is it going to close? Just waiting for the next candle to form. Oh, maybe it's going to close back up. Okay, now it's closed. Okay, so now we have a bearish boss. So now what I'm thinking is do I want to take partial profits off my shorts? Because now the 4 hour switched bearish. I've got in on this lower high. You know, there's potential now we could be coming all the way down for these weak daily lows. So, but yeah, I'm just thinking out loud now. But the problem is, right, is even though we are now trading pro trend and we're short, where our swing high is, it's the highest point that took out this low. So if we look back, this is our 4 hour swing high up here. So what could happen in theory is price could pull the way back up, stop us out of these short positions, come and mitigate this extreme zone up here, and then continue down, okay? So I'm going to take some partials. Let's close 50% on those. Yeah, we'll do 50. I was just thinking of maybe going heavier on the second one because we're lower down, but yeah, we'll just do 50% on that, and then we'll see how we go. Okay, so let's have a bit of a reassessment here. So 4 hour switch bearish. We mitigated this level here, so this would be our last mitigation. So let's draw on this zone here, right? This would be the zone that we'd be looking for price to come back into to look to scale in, which is this area here, okay? So we have these levels. This is why, right, price could come back in and stop us out if it comes back up higher. So I'll have to reassess. We've just had a bust. It doesn't mean we're going to pull back straight away. We have our next level of clear demand down here, right? So we can kind of be quite aggressive with sells until then. So let's see what we have. We have here on M15, especially as we're coming into London. This is when, right, momentum's high. You don't have to wait for price to pull back. You can put your foot on the gas. Just be aware it is aggressive. So you will take a fair amount of losses doing this, but just get practice with it of when to do it, right? You can see the momentum we've got. London session. Let's put on this entry here. Again, I keep saying I'm going to speed it up, and then I don't. I feel like this video could go on for hours. I'm going to try and speed this up because we're not even halfway through the month just yet. Sell limit. Cool. It's just I want to try and kind of really talk it through. So rather than me just whack on trades and you're not entirely sure why, I want you guys to try and understand as much as possible, because it is quite hard to follow with all this analysis on just MT4. Okay, so this is an aggressive trade, but screw it. Let's follow the momentum. Okay, we're in. Let's wait for at least for the low to go before I'd manage this. Hasn't gone yet. Okay, now it's gone. So this trades sub 31. So you see how it's running, almost 7%, from initial balance, not from equity. And because it's at the low, this is where you have to think about, right, where you are entering short. Yes, it's pro trend, but look where we are within the leg, right? Very easily, the 4 hour could start to pull back. So if you're going to enter low in the leg, me personally, I would be very aggressive in management. So you can either have a fixed R, so like you always just fully exit full volume at 5R, for instance, or you take the majority of your partials or all of them at the nearest low. Or what you can do is you can just trail price. So you would continue to trail behind these highs, okay? I'm going to be pretty aggressive with this. I'm just going to take off like 80% of the volume on this, just because I don't really like entering that low down the leg. So cool, we'll go with that. And then, but what you can do, right, is you can look to continue to scale in. So we could be aggressive again. Wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but let's do it. Let's scale in here. It's quite a small candle, so we don't use 25%, because essentially what I'm doing is I'm using my profits that I made from this quick move and following it down until we hit the 4 hour demand zone. So let's whack this on. Now, what I will say is if you're not consistent, and if you're already kind of trying to find that consistency, you don't want to be trading this aggressively. You want to be sticking to those moves that we looked at, right? These moves within the 4 hour POIs, stick to them. Do not be chasing price down this far, right? Because this is where you're going to get burnt if you don't know what you're doing, okay? But what I like about this is that, did it sweep liquidity? I thought it did, because it looked like it did because this candle, but all of these candles break the prior candle's lows. It's all part of the down moves. So there's no structural liquidity in here. We've come up, we pushed, so technically it's not a sweep zone. There's no inducement. So actually I'm going to pull this order because there's just not enough confluence. It's one of those ones, right, where these can play out, especially on EU, especially as it's the last mitigation. But do you know what, screw it, I'm going to keep it on because I want to show you guys it doesn't really matter if you take losses. Boom, got something I thought we would. But yeah, hopefully you guys can see exactly why that was not a high probability trade. But I kind of want to show you that losses really are relevant. They don't mean shit when you have a high risk to reward strategy like this. Okay, so what have we mitigated? Have we mitigated anything here? I can get this box to work. Yeah, okay, we kind of come up into the sell to buy, so it makes sense, but I'm going to leave that there. We've now had a clear bullish change of character, so we could, because we have come off technically a 4 hour range, we could look for long. So we have the extreme down here. Do we have any flip zones? Not really, just push straight up through. So yeah, if we come back down, potentially look for a long down there. Kind of have this 4 hour doji, but it looks like a bearish doji. It's not the best. I don't really want to look to short from that. It's quite an aggressive retrace now as well, so probably I'm expecting price to come up higher. You could look from longs. Is this a flip zone? Let's see, what did it react to? Did it react from this? No, it spiked up higher, so that's just more of a sweep than a flip. So that's not really a valid one for me. So I wouldn't necessarily want to scale into that, or not scale in, but take a long from it. So I'm just going to leave it. Let's see if price is going to come up higher. Spread hours anyway. It's basically now waiting for either price to come down towards the extreme or to come up into that 4 hour supply zone. Or if we start to kind of break down from here, right? If we start to get, a bearish change of character on the 4 hour, we were to take out this low, or if, we start to break down, we can look left. Doesn't make sense what it's reacting to. Okay, if we've swept liquidity, if we've had a decent break to the downside, then we can look for price to come into that freshly created supply zone, and we can look to short because price does not have to pull back into our extreme for our POI, right? We have coming up CPI, yes, I wouldn't want to trade into CPI either. Okay, we're pushing up with a fair amount of momentum. So this is what I was saying. Yeah, we actually probably, especially see when we took these highs here, kind of, yeah, this is where, with the benefit of hindsight, probably should have taken more partials off, because we only took 50% off of our position there. So kind of messed up a little bit. There's no kind of, not really much point in me taking partials now. That was a mistake, but it is what it is. We can also look to get into some more trades if they present up. Okay, what we're reacting to. So this is a problem. When I start to speed things up, I start to miss things, right? So we have this buy to sell here. Okay, that essentially flipped this level. Didn't really sweep liquidity, no inducement, so I wouldn't set a risk entry on that, but let's see if we can get a confirmation entry. Otherwise, we have, this has been mitigated for me. So the next level I'll be looking at is this extreme up here. So we can whack this on. I'll cover the high as well, just to be sure. Okay, so we'll see if we push up a bit higher. But yeah, so this is something I'd recommend, right? Especially if you want to bring risk entries into your strategy, is when it's pro trend, a 4-hour POI, which has swept the liquidity behind this high, and you have a refined extreme supply zone within that, right? That is the level in which you want to be setting risk entries if you're going to do it. So I'll put that on just so I don't forget. We'll get the 25% of it as well. Appreciate the charts are getting a bit messy now, but essentially what this is the extreme M15 supply zone within the 4-hour supply zone, right? Which is pro trend. So, this is a pretty good area, especially last mitigation. That price should continue short if it's going to. We'll put that just above the high, same stop loss as the previous one. Okay, boom. So yeah, we've come into this supply zone. This could hold, but I kind of want to wait for a bearish change of character. I'm coming into CPI, which isn't great. So let's see. Okay, have we had a bearish shock? No, because all of these candles break the prior candles high, so we have to take out this low first. Okay, now we're taking out the low. I don't really like any. See how none of these candles are that clear to look for short. There's no flip here. There's no. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that, especially with CPI. It's just let CPI play out. Oh shit. I forgot I had the extreme one already. Okay, well, yeah, I wouldn't do that live. I definitely wouldn't do that live. I wouldn't recommend that. So let's put it forward anyway. Probably gonna get stopped out on that. I think I did get stopped. I got stopped out on the scaling on the original position. That's cool. Okay, so that was a mismanagement. So that was one we took back over here, right? Which really, when price starts to break structure like that, you probably do want to take more partials, because especially with expecting the 4-hour pullback back to where we already are, right? So that was a bit of a mistake there. But here's what it is. We're still up 63%. I didn't even realize that. Okay, so we're not doing too bad. Right, so we've come into our extreme. We're in that risk entry. That's not a trade I would take live. So yeah, it's kind of not ideal. But what I'd be looking for now is for a bearish change of character, which should be down here. All of these candles break the prior candles high. Yeah, so we only see that these lows go at this point, really. Coming into the Asian session. Yeah, we've taken that low, so we've had a bearish change of character now. So where can we short from? Well, we can look at this level here. Right, we had a mitigation here. We had this mitigation here. So mitigation I was talking about, I didn't draw it on, was this one here, right? Price came in and mitigated that. So this would be the last candle, but it didn't sweep liquidity and it has no inducement. So I don't really like that zone, but let's see. Let's whack an order on it. It's not great from a liquidity standpoint. I think that'll be quite small though. 4 pips, so put it in there. I'm not going to draw the 25% because I just want to speed it up a little bit. Let's bring us forward. Okay, what's the 4-hour doing? So we've come in and we mitigated 4-hour supply. We've now had a bearish change of character, right? We've taken out that low. It's quite messy though, but we've got these supply zones. Potentially we might come back up to the extreme again, so I'll keep an eye on that if we do push up higher. But we are already in short from the top, so we'll leave that for now. Let's see how we go. We have this extreme demand zone, but it's on a weak 4-hour low, so I would expect there to be a reaction, but ultimately for it to get run. So let's play this forward. Let's make sure those lows haven't gone yet. Okay, it's spiked that low. Okay, we're pulling back up now. Let's see if we get tagged in. Yeah, it stopped out. So no surprises there, right? This zone had no inducement. It didn't sweep liquidity. So that means that these become liquidity, right, for price to sweep, which is what's now happened. Potentially there's something left within that wick. No, that was mitigated as well. So if we get a bearish change of character here, let's wait for that at the very least before I even think about shorts. Might become to the extreme. Have we had a bearish chalk? I don't think we have just yet. So I need to see this logo here. Well, not yet. Let's wait for another candle. Okay, now we have. So we've swept these highs. We had a bearish change of character, but within this 4-hour wick. So yeah, it's not that clean, but we can look for shorts from here because we swept liquidity. We've had a bearish change of character. We mitigated for our supply. Yeah, let's put a sell limit on that. Okay, cool. So stop behind the high, 25%. Try this bit a little bit quicker again. Yeah. Oh, you're joking. Was there news? No. I don't remember. I don't think I put my stop that tight. Maybe the spreads blew out. Oh well, it is what it is. There's potentially another entry here. Right, we have another zone. That's really annoying, that. These things happen. All right, sell limit on this one. All right, there we go. And then they're going to tag us in. I don't think it is it? Oh, we've gone now. It could be in, yeah, I'm gonna take that. It's getting messy. Okay, so what we have on the M15 is we have all of these lows. Essentially what we're trying to get in is I'm just looking for positions to basically get this 4-hour zone playing out, right? So we can target this weak low because it's failed to make a high, and we can trade down into around this 4-hour refined demand zone, right? So zoom in a little bit. I mean, we could come up higher, but yeah, I wouldn't really want to trade against these lows, and that's just not a good area of value, so let's play it forward. It's not really a clean supply zone. I'll tell you what, I'll put the order back on this because we are coming up now. I'll be happy to trade short from here. So let's whack a sell limit on. We're going to come in, just ranging around. Coming into the London session, yeah, boom, we dropped off now. So going to cancel that order. All right, let's think about, okay, so we got trade management, right, from the shorts from the top. I'm going to wait because I've caught what I think is likely to be the 4-hour lower high. In theory, you should not really be taking any partials until the low goes, until the 4-hour low goes, right? So once that goes, we'll take a heavy amount of partials. But it's pro trend, M15, this is still in play, but obviously we're nowhere near it for now. We do have London sessions, so we can be a bit more aggressive. We do have a flip zone here. Did it sweep liquidity? Not really. Doesn't have any inducement. But do you know what I mean? These, yeah, I'm going to leave it. Let's see. Can we take out that 4-hour low? So coming into the extreme demand zone, definitely would not be looking for longs from here. Why? Because it's a weak low. It should get smashed. You can, of course, trade reactions from here, but at a bare minimum, you really want to be looking for a bullish M15 chock and supply starting to fail, which, yeah, hasn't really happened. Whereas I'm going to have, yeah, let's just wait for this low. See this low. We'll go. Okay, boom, now we've gone. So I'm going to take a heavy amount of partials on this. I think this was my original order, wasn't it? Yeah, there's only 8 lots in that. So we'll just take it out another 50%. And then this one will go, so this is the one we took out from the top recently. Yeah, so we'll partial pretty heavy on this one as well. Now, in theory, like I was saying, right, because it's pro 4-hour trend, you can hold on to these with a lot more volume, but I try to be quite realistic. I personally don't like holding on to too much volume. So once we get that lower low, I'm pretty happy to take, you know, the majority of my profits off there, but we'll let some run now. Okay, so we're coming into this 4-hour demand zone, and that's fine because it's just, you know, old demand zones become potential reaction points for pullbacks, right, now that we've taken out this 4-hour low. So we're playing within this next current swing range here. POIs, so that's mitigated, right? This wick's mitigated. That's where we took a trade, but we just got stopped out. That would have been a beautiful trade. That is so frustrating. Even in backtesting, it's still feel emotions, but it is what it is. I don't really like this 4-hour POI because it didn't sweep liquidity and it doesn't have any inducement in the leg, but yeah, we'll see how price is even when it potentially comes back up to that. So let's see how we react when we come into the market. Okay, we tapped into that 4-hour wick. We've got a bullish change of character. All right, we could be a bit aggressive here, right? And we can look at this POI here. Oh, we're coming into news. What news have we got? Retail sales. Okay, we'll leave that alone. Saved us from a loss there. Very, very aggressive. Wouldn't recommend that, right? Really what you want to see is a clear liquidity sweep, a bit more of a sustained move, right? And supply clearly failing. It didn't in this case, right? So that would have been an awful trade. And this is the problem, right? With sometimes with backtesting, it's demo. You rush through, you kind of start whacking on trades left, right, and center that you wouldn't do in reality. So yeah, I will try and continue to kind of be a little bit more picky here. But we are in this 4-hour demand zone, right? Just haven't cloned it to the M15. So let's look for at least a bit more of a convincing break to the upside and see supply failing. What I like about this is, although we're in 4-hour demand, right? Again, I'm going to be aggressive. We've got a lot of momentum. We are during sort of the New York session. I'm happy to take kind of a loss in this area, but this is aggressive, right? It's a sweep zone. Let's see if it can continue to the low. But again, this is bang on what I've been saying, right? Do not take these if you're not consistent, because these are low probability trades. This is me just following the order flow, following the mitigations. There's no real inducement in this leg, but it is a sweep zone. And you're trading against this 4-hour demand level. And we've had a 4-hour break of structure, so we expect a pullback. But these can continue. I kind of just want to show you though that losses really don't matter if you're going to be aggressive. But yeah, sticking to the ones within the 4-hour POIs is always going to give you the highest strike rate. Are we going to pull back, or are we just going to continue dying? What's the time? I don't know why there's a reaction. There's no 26. Yeah, there's no news for another 5 days. So let's see. If we start to kind of clear this supply level, I'm going to probably take a few more. Actually, let's just see what happens when we do it. Okay, looks like it's holding. Looks like it's holding. Spread hours, not ideal. Play it forward a little bit. Yeah, we can get. Ooh, bang! Yeah, we're out. Okay, yeah, a bit of an aggressive trade, but there we go. Is what it is. Cool. So looking like we're starting to pull back now. So you could take more partials. John, I'll just leave it just because we've taken pretty heavy partials. There's not that much running on it, and in theory, we've had a break of structure here, so our swing high is this point here. So we're actually reasonably protected. So we actually, in theory, price shouldn't trade any higher really than where our entries are. So yeah, we can leave that there. I'll tell you what, we'll just move into break even just to keep the charts a little bit clearer. So yeah, let's see if we can look for longs up until around this supply zone up here. Obviously, bear in mind, it could react from the actual buy to sell, so we can keep an eye on it like that. And then we'll clone that to the M15. Right, so this level here. So let's look at the POIs that we can look to trade from. What I'm going to do is delete this box, and I'm going to draw it back on from just the 4-hour zone, just the 4-hour chart, just so we can then draw on some limitations with this software. It's a bit rubbish with. So essentially we have this 4-hour POI, and then within there, let's look for an M15. So we have these highs here. This extreme, it's not great, right? I'd probably expect price might want to come up higher. What's that zone up there? Yeah, we got this extreme up here, right? Inducement above. That's a lot better. I'd probably be willing to set a risk entry on that, but we'll wait for price to come up. And then what else do we have? We have this POI here. It's a flip zone, right? So we have this one, but it does have inducement. Arguably it swept the highs there as well, right? So that's one. We also have this clean push, no inducement, didn't sweep, so it's not great. And then we have this one as well, right? This buy to sell, which we're coming up to. Obviously, no inducement, didn't sweep, so that's not great. They did break structure, so they're all strong zones in terms of that. But let's see, are any of them flip zones? Let's drag this across. It's buy to sell. Let's have a look. That low, what did it react to? Okay, arguably, I mean, that is technically a flip zone. It's just not great, right? Because we have these sell to buy wicks that took out this level here. So that is a flip zone. And then, yeah, these are all zones as well. Like, that's a flip zone. That reacted to this wick, that's a flip zone. And then, yeah, that's just an extreme structural zone. So they're all technically valid, right? But obviously some are better than others. This is the least well priced, no inducement, no sweep. So definitely wouldn't set a risk entry on that. But we can set some on these as we get up higher if we get up there. So let's put the chart back. And I'm going to try and speed this up again because we're going to be here all day. Okay, cool. So zoom in. We've had a bearish change of character, but we're not really coming off anything. We're coming off these buy to sell wicks, but let's be a bit more patient. Wait for something decent. Okay, we're coming to this. I'm not expecting that much. I'm sure we'll go higher. Okay. A decent move off. Right, I'll be happy to short that with that reaction. Right, we swept the high, mitigating a flip zone, decent movement down. Right, these demand levels are failing. Put a sell limit on that. Stop above the high, roughly 25%. Cool, let's put this forward. No, that's not, okay, yeah, that's gone. All right, we'll leave it there for now. Okay, so what we now have is essentially this old demand zone has now flipped to supply. We've reacted, we've pushed down. So we now have another POI to look to short from, which is this, right? RM15 extreme within there. So I'm going to leave the order there. I like that. We can continue to pay this forward. Let's see, coming into the end of New York. Don't really want to be shorting from down here. Get through the spread hours. Going to try and just a little bit clearer now. I'm just going to stick to the really sort of high probability positions. Let's fast forward this towards London. Okay, so coming into London, obviously heavily bearish. Ideally, price would come back up here for shorts, but it doesn't have to. We've got old demand zones down here, right? They just provide potential reaction points for long, so we can be quite aggressive with shorts until we get there. So let's have a look. We could, I know I said to stick to really high probability ones, but let's look at that, right? Swept the liquidity behind here. So whack a sell limit on that. Stop above the high, probably just go above that wick. Be a little bit more conservative because it is an aggressive trade. It's less than 6 pips, that's cool. Play it forward. We haven't quite reached demand yet. So again, you could be aggressive here, right? But like I said, I kind of want to, because that swept the highs. You could sell on this wick, but I'm not going to take that. Okay, oh yeah, so we are in demand. We're in that 4-hour demand. So we could be aggressive here, right? We've had a sweep liquidity. We've had a bullish change of character. This nearest supply level failed. We've already broken below this sell to buy wick flip zone. So the extremes here. So we could put a limit on the extreme there. Where's the... Can't see the buy level. Don't know if I'm being blind. Oh, there we go. That's the entry. So stop must be below. There it is. How tight is that? 3 pips. We go just below. Okay. Right. Tell you what, I'm going to take some partials from those ones at the top. Let's just close another 50%. And then we'll close that one as well, 50%. We can leave that risk entry on at the top. I'm going to close... No, we'll leave that because there's a 4-hour counter there. Screw it. Did we get tagged in on that? I don't think we did. We didn't get tagged in. Might come lower, let's see. No, I'm going to cancel that order. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to cancel that as well. That's too aggressive now. We're coming off 4-hour demand. So 43 is gone. And we'll save that to the risk entry. Let's see if this holds or not. Yeah, smash. Okay. So that's gone. Supply is clearly failing. We're coming off 4-hour demand. Love that reaction. We've cleared this 4-hour candle here as well. So that's a decent move. We could be coming up at least back up towards this buy to sell range. We've obviously structure shifted bullish. What we kind of have, right, is this range here. Price reacted, pushed down and then pushed up. So we have a flip zone here, right? That's swept liquidity behind this low. Draw it on. It's not the best, right? It's not really the best, but yeah, I'd count that as a sweep zone. So let's buy limit, roughly stop below the low. We'll roughly go 25%, about there. Okay, so yeah, let's play this 4-hour pullback and we can target around, what level is that around? Yeah, so let's see how that goes. Again, trying to do this pretty quickly. We get tagged in. Only news, not for another day and a bit. Pushing up higher. How much of a pullback was that? Not that sizable. That's a straight push. I mean, those lows just look like that's building liquidity for below. So I like that as inducement. Yeah, I'll leave the order on. Let's see how we go. Session timing coming into London. We've reacted. Do we have a bullish change of character? Not yet. Okay, now we've had a bullish change of character. Okay, so it's probably not going to come back. So we've taken out this high here. Right, see how that was the movement up, movement down, and then we broke it. So this was arguably a flip as well, right? Because it's not the best in the world, but essentially we came into this supply. Right, reacted, pushed up. We've had a bullish change of character. We've mitigated the supply zone. We've swept liquidity. So yeah, we could look for along there. I'm going to cancel this one. I'll put a buy limit here. It's quite an aggressive trade, but roughly 25%. Let's see if we can go. Oh no, don't miss me again. Oh, how many trades have I just been missed and just been stopped out of as well? Oh no, we might come back. Probably going to regret saying that now if I get stopped out. Yeah, there we go. Right, so yeah, the wick obviously, well, with the benefit of hindsight, was obviously a lot higher probability. That was the last mitigation, right? Came into this level here. We could enter at market, but yeah, that's getting a bit aggressive now. We'll leave it there. Right, that would have been a nice trade. Sweep zone, inducement below it. Yeah, that would have been pretty tidy. Probably going to move off from there. Oh, that spiked as well, yeah, so. Probably should have checked. Have we mitigated something on the M15? What have we come into? Broke higher than that level, so we haven't touched the previous 4 hour range either. It's not really hitting anything too clear in my opinion, so interesting. Okay, well, we've swept liquidity, we've broken structure to the downside, so potentially that's it. That could be the pullback over. We've had a bearish 4 hour change of character. Well, no, all of those counters broke the prior counters low, I think, so it's technically not internal structure. I'm just trying to basically, what I'm trying to work out here is whether or not to start looking for sells, right? Is the pullback over? But what I'm skeptical about is we haven't mitigated anything that's clear to me on the M15 or above. So this could be inducement for a higher above, right? But it's pro trend, let's do it, let's put a limit on it. But I do think we'll probably come higher, let's see. But that's worth the risk for me. It's pro M15 and 4 hour trend. We do have this decisional here. Let's see. We'll just leave it. We'll leave it on the extreme. Let's try and be this a little bit quicker. What's the time? Asian session. It's got this level here. But, you know, it didn't take out the low. So really that, you know, in theory should be a weak high. It might hold out. Yeah, it's getting run. See how this high failed to get this low? So it's not really a great level to be shorting from. We're spiked from this decisional here, but I'm going to leave my order on the extreme. Hopefully we can get tagged in up here. See how we go. Oh, I can't into news. What news is it? FOMC. Yeah, I'm not trading through that. Sell limits can go. Yeah, leave the trades on. Oh, is it going to play out? Let's see what FOMC does. Yeah, I was lucky we didn't take that. So we came down lower. We mitigated this extreme for our demand zone, and we've now pushed up. So going to be looking for price to come up into our extreme supply zone up here. Is that the extreme? Yeah, so I'm going to whack a limit on that extreme because this is the extreme M15 supply within this box here, okay? There's no inducement. It did sweep to high, however. So yeah, because it's extreme, I'm happy to be more aggressive in those areas, but ideally it would have inducement. It wouldn't be such a clean push, which it doesn't have. Roughly go 25%. So 8 pips, go a little bit higher. There we go, cool. Okay, we've continued down. Okay, 4 hour demand's gone. I don't know what's going on now. Right, so where are we in the higher time frames? We've tapped into this extreme zone here, have we? Not yet. We've tapped into the sell to buy range, but we could come a bit lower. We've had another break of structure. Let's just measure that. Yeah, that's a swing pullback. So let's see if we can get a 4 hour closure below, which we haven't had yet. But if we do, this will become the new swing high. So then we have a 4 hour POI here. You see how we tapped into the buy to sell range? So we were looking for it to come higher. Let's draw this on whilst I got it on. But essentially, we were looking for price here to pull back up into this 4 hour supply zone. But remember, it doesn't have to hit our refined supply. It can come into the whole buy to sell range, which is what it did, right? So arguably that is mitigated, but we never know if it still could come up higher, right, and hit our refined level. But it's just to understand what's happening. We push down lower. We have a new supply zone. See how we swept these highs? Beautiful sweep liquidity, strong push down. So now we can look at this level here. It's a great sweep zone, but I'm always skeptical of these clean pushes, right? So I'll tell you what we'll do. Instead of whacking a limit on that, we'll see if we can get a confirmation entry. See what happens. Try and be a bit quicker now. Got one more week to go or so. Okay, we're coming into the extreme. I'm gonna wait for a bearish shock if we get one, if we even reach it. I mean, we're in the buy to sell, so we could go from here. I don't like it, but we've had a bearish change of character. Do you know what? We'll take one because it could go from here. I don't like it though, but usually prefer to see a bit more of a sweep. Let's be 25%. We'll take it. We've tapped into the 4-hour POI, so screw it. Let's hit all the... Yeah. Oh, just in. We're out. Okay, that's cool. Not to worry. Looks like we're coming up to our extreme zone. Yeah, I'm gonna wait to see if we can get... That's quite aggressive. See if we can get a bearish change of character. Okay, so you see how we pulled back, and then we've taken the high. That now means that this here is my active internal low, because that's the most recent low that took out the high. So let's wait to see if that gets wicked. Okay, now it has. Mitigated the extreme, love that, right? Straight into the zone there. I mean, that's quite an aggressive V shape, so I don't like that. Maybe we are going to come up higher, but this is what I mean, right? Assume the trend will continue until it doesn't. We had a break of structure. Let me zoom in so you can see it. This is our most recent 4-hour high, not our most recent. This is our swing high. It's a strong high because it took out the low. So in theory, this low should hold. So let's take a short on this. So I'm not going to draw it on because I need to speed this up. Roughly 25%, stop above the high. We've had our shock from the mitigation. We should in theory be able to now target this week low. Let's see if we get tagged in. Is it going to pull back to us? And we're in. Let's see how it goes. What's the session timing? Yeah, we're coming to spread hours, which is not ideal. Hopefully we don't get spiked out. It's not looking too good. Let's see if we can get towards London. So what's happening? We have this supply zone here, right? So you're starting to see bearish order flows holding. It is messy. Taking out this low. This is kind of how I'd be analyzing it if I was coming into London at my desk, right? But we have this one up above. So I'd be a bit cautious of that. That's kind of the last mitigation. I'd maybe set an order on that if I wasn't already in. Okay, now I'm pushing lower, but then you have this one as well. So it's not super clean, but if you wanted to get aggressive here, because we have come into the extreme, you could look at those two POIs. Yeah, that one's held. See if we can try to see if we can take out this low really first. It looks like we're building a lot of liquidity to the upside, but supply is holding. It's holding. What high impact news have we got? Powell's speaking. Doesn't look like it's about FOMC, so it probably won't. Okay, selling off now. Yeah, it was pretty messy, but you could see supply was holding, right? So intraday opportunities there if you're an M1 trader, right? Just keep trading these and you can look, but it's not great. It's not the best of price action we pushed down here. So this would be our last POI. So yeah, I'll whack a limit on that. The original position, basically going to hold full volume and down towards that low. We should take it out in theory, right? We've traded from the strong high. We can target the strong low. But let's look at for a scaling. This one's not great. Again, didn't sweep liquidity, doesn't have inducement, but just following order flow at this point. Pro trend, happy to take it. Let's see if we get tagged in. We have a flip zone here. But didn't sweep liquidity, no inducement. So it's not the best, but let's see what risk to reward we can get. All right, I'm going to go on EEQ just because I want to risk to reward to be on my side to target the low. Put a TP on the low. What can we get there? Yeah, over 10 to 1 RR. I'll take that. Probably will get slapped. Ooh. Yeah, we're out. Okay, we've still got the limit on that one. Let's see. Spread hours. Coming into Monday now, new week. So same thing. Nothing's changed. Okay, we're selling off. Are we mitigating anything? Nothing really. Yeah, I mean, there's no clear candles here to really look for sells. Just leave that alone. Haven't taken up the low, built those equal lows. You see that, right? React to the wick and the weak low. It's a weak low because it's failed to make a high. Price reacts to it. Induce buyers into the market. They have loads of sell stops below these lows, right? Boom, all get smashed. So yeah, it's too low on the leg now really to be looking for shorts, but you could look to potentially look at that last mitigation there. See if we can take out this 4-hour low yet. Not quite. There's not even a bullish change of character to look for a hedge. See if that supply zone is going to hold. Yep. Right, see how we, again, same thing that we had over here. So look at this. We had a weak low, right? So you don't want to be buying from this. Price reacts, smashes liquidity below it. Same thing could be happening here, right? We have this extreme weak low, right? Why is it a weak low? It's a weak swing low because it failed to take out the swing high. Price reacts from it to build liquidity, right? So you can trade these reactions, right? You know, if you're trading in the M1 or whatever, or if this was a 4 hour zone, you could trade an M15 at confirmation entry from here. But you have to understand, if you're doing it, get aggressive, get out of that trade at the next supply zone or partials or however you want to do it. Do not expect this to go on and form new highs. All right, let's see this low can go, and then we'll, or maybe not, maybe it's going to push up higher. Let's see. We're coming towards the end of the day. Are we taking out the low? Not yet. Come on, building more liquidity, triple bottom now. And there we go. Right, so this one here, these I'm just gonna, so that was a limit. You can take that off. Then we got tagged in. This sell from the extreme, we're getting low in the leg now. So I'm gonna take off 80% of that. These are the ones, I'll tell you what, let's see if we can take out this extreme low, and then we'll probably exit full volume on those. See if we can come into this refined demand zone. We might get a decent reaction from this. Let's see. Oh no, we already tapped into it. Yeah, we already tapped into it there. Cool, so let's just make sure we get a 4 hour closure below the low. Yeah, it definitely looks like we're going to. Oh, maybe not. Okay. So we have this extreme 4 hour POI, which would be ideal. Price pulls back up to. Right, for this last week of the month, we have to be aware we're in extreme, sort of this extreme daily low down here. So we don't want to be too aggressive. We have this zone as well. Excuse me. So these would be kind of the two main 4 hour POIs I'd be looking at. So let's clone this actually to, so we can see where that is. That's up here. And then the other one as well. Price actually not very clear up there. So ideally we want to be looking for shorts within this 4 hour POI. But we do have lower POIs in the leg, right? We had this mitigation here. Obviously price could come up into the refined supply, but it was a nice sweep zone. Right, price swept, pushed down, came back up and mitigated another push down. So this is the last mitigation. So we could be a bit aggressive, but yeah, the high probability ones are this 4 hour POI, right? This level here, and then this level up here. This 4 hour demand I expect to now fail that we're reacting from. Why? Because we had a big reaction from it, right? We tapped the orders, we pushed up, and now that reaction's failed. It failed to put in a higher high, it failed to take out supply. Supply's still in control, so I'm not really paying much attention to this now. So we can be a bit aggressive here. Again, if you want to have your strike rate as high as possible, you know, you don't want to be doing this. We've got 25%. You want to be looking at the 4 hour POIs, okay? But, you know, you can see the logic behind this. This is the last mitigation. Swept the liquidity behind these highs. Nice, decent push, but there's no inducement, which isn't really that ideal, so could get slapped here. See, is it going to pull back? What news is that? Test of, yeah, it's just power speaking. It's nothing, not a big deal. Or maybe it is. Let's see. Okay, that's held, and we're taking it at a low, so I'm going to take heavy partials on that because this is an aggressive trade. In fact, I'm just going to get out of it. Full partials there, 8%. I'll take that all day. Cool. We could come into this now, right? But it's just getting very messy, right? We swept these lows, aggressive retrace back into this supply zone, right? We follow the mitigations. I'm just going to leave it. See if we can come up into this 4 hour POI ideally. I just want to get through this week reasonably quickly now. Just don't want this video to be, I have no idea how long I've been going. It feels like about 2 hours. Okay, so we've taken out those daily lows. So boom, let's take some pretty heavy partials now. We'd already taken partials, so we can just close 50% of what we had left. 50%. And then I've forgotten which one is which now. And that one there, 50%. Cool, so try not to sneeze, I really need to sneeze. We're taking out the low. Where's our next 4 hour POI? It's here. All right, so let's clone that to, okay, what can we trade from in here? Well, we've got, that's been mitigated, so we have this zone here, probably refine that to the wick. Swept the liquidity behind this high, right? No inducement. Let's see how price pulls back up to it. What news do we have? Powell speaking again. What is going on this week? Speaking a lot. Okay, looks like I'm just dumping. What's the time? Yeah, coming into New York, so we can be a bit more aggressive because momentum is likely to continue. Just trying to see what candle, probably this one here, because it has inducement. Yeah, I don't really like these ones. They're too low on the legs. Let's put a sell limit on that. What's the next news we've got? Let's have a look in a sec. We have him speaking again. Yeah, I don't know what's going on that week. Okay, we just dumped off from that decisional there. Not to worry, is what it is. That wasn't super high probability in my opinion, but this is what I mean, right? If it comes into session opens, that was kind of bang on New York opening, you can be a lot more aggressive with these POIs, especially momentums like this, right? And then, yeah, we're absolutely selling off now. So I'm going to pull that order. Let's see how far we're going to go. We'll just do this to the end of the week. And then, wow, okay. I don't really want to be selling this low in the leg. I wouldn't even been thinking about longs now until we see some clear, sustained bullish order flow with demand holding. Okay, so this is what I mean, right? You can be aggressive here. So, did we sweep liquidity? Doesn't look like we did. No, we didn't sweep those highs. So really, I mean, so with continuations, right, what you want to see is you want to see structural liquidity get swept, which it did here, but then price pushed down, mitigated that supply and has pushed down. So whereas if it had to come up again, and if it had to swept that high, if I draw it properly, if it had swept this high, I'd be a lot more confident to want to take that short. But because it hasn't, yeah, it doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence to want to put a limit on that. Yeah, it swept it now. Okay. So we could, yeah, it's just not clear, right? It's not, I'd want to see that low go really. It's just messing around. But yeah, we've dumped. Okay. But that was aggressive short, which you could have taken. But you see how once it swept and then it was ready to go, right? It swept the high. But there was no bearish change of character really, but essentially it pulled back up into that buy to sell. But yeah, it's very, very aggressive trading. What we have now, another 4-hour POI here. So now we've got something a bit more, substantial to work with, right? The zone we were just looking at. So we can clone that on. What do we have within here? We have that supply zone. All right, it's kind of mitigated though. It's not that clean, but we can put a limit on that just because it's nearer the extreme and it's swept liquidity 25%. Okay, let's go. What news have we got? Powell doing his thing. Okay, yeah, so it's coming to the decisional again. Fair enough. Did we sweep that high? Doesn't look like we did. No. I won't be too keen on selling from there then. Might go from here, see. Yeah, that would have been a nice entry. Don't like any of this price action now though. Kind of waiting for, let's see, we've taken out this low. It's a problem now, I'm trying to speed up for the sake of the video time, but now I'm missing sort of what's going on with the price action. We haven't taken out this low, so technically this is a weak high so far, so I don't really want to trade from that. Yeah, let's just leave it. Nice equal highs as well to be swept into our POI. What news is coming up? Nothing too major. Or is that gonna, what news is that? Cool PCE, yeah, let's leave it. It's not, there's no point in taking a really aggressive trade into high impact news, so we'll get rid of that sell limit. See this for our POI can hold. If it doesn't hold, I'll probably take some more partials on these trades. Okay, looks like that would have been a nice sell so far. Price action is super messy, so don't want to be trading any of this. Let's bring on to, okay, and that's the end of the week. So I tell you what, that brings us to October. So let's exit all positions. Cool. So, I mean, 107%. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? The R is there. I don't feel like, hopefully at this stage of the course, you guys need to be proved that. The purpose of this video was not really to say, look out the insane R you can make, because you should know that, already by now. In reality, trading is not as easy as this, right? There's going to be tons of emotions involved. You're not always going to be at peak performance, right? You're going to miss trades. You're going to mismanage things. It's not going to be easy to just hold on to these trades for this long, right? We've gone through an entire month's worth of price action in a few hours, okay? So I'm not going to, this isn't to sit here and go, look, you should be making 100 R every month, right? Yeah, you might be able to do that on a $500 account, but when you're trading serious capital, you have a life to fund, a real life, you have financial obligations. You're not necessarily going to be holding on to all these trades for that long, okay? But it is possible. It's there. It's doable. Your limiting beliefs, you need to be raising wherever that limit is, that bar, and pushing it to the upside, right? That I got rid of most of the volume on most of these trades at the nearest 4-hour low. Whereas, if you held on, I'm not going to do the maths for you, but there's a lot there, right? But the logic's there. Hopefully you guys understand it. I did take quite a lot of aggressive trades as well, just to kind of show you that losses really don't mean anything, yeah? Like if you go on a massive loss streak, it really doesn't mean anything because the risk reward is on your side, okay? Also, with those aggressive trades, I tried to point out the reason why they were aggressive, and I tried to explain to you, you shouldn't really be taking these if you're not consistent because there's no inducement in the leg. They didn't suit liquidity. But the time to do it, if you do want to be aggressive, is at those session timings. Ideally at the start of the London or the New York session, where momentum is on your side, rather than doing it during the Asian session, where you're much more likely to get swept out during corrective moves. But yeah, it is what it is. My goal with these is I'll probably do this maybe for each kind of month going forward. So we'll do a recap of the higher time frame price action. Maybe I'll do the next one on TradingView, which obviously isn't as great for kind of recording trade stats and stuff, but it will allow us to kind of analyze price a little bit clearer. We can kind of probably understand price action a little bit easier rather than it is on kind of doing it on SoftFX. But there you go. You can kind of see the equity curve, pretty smooth equity curve there, right? Closing. So the balance stays pretty near the equity curve, which essentially means you're closing your profits and you're not letting equity run away, and try and kind of swing for the fences on that. And then you can look at the statistics here. So, pretty decent strike rate there. We had 25 wins, 15 losses. I'm trying to see so 5 losses in a row. If you had those 5 losses at the start, would you be doubting the strategy? Would you be doubting your own ability? You probably would. And it just goes, you've got to keep executing, keep following your plan. Yeah, and just trusting the process, and it is there. So I'll leave that there. This is a pretty long video, but yeah, we'll do a few more of these in the future. I hope you took some value from that, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.